Hey everybody, how's it going? Oh damn it, I forgot to turn down my mic again.
Please stand by.
Okay. Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Wednesday, October 19th. It's RambleCast. I'm starting a little bit late because I was doing some things with video and my office is a mess. Will forever be a mess. And sitting on the chat, we have a Corbin.
Hi.
An enthusiastic Corbin.
Corbin is very tired again.
Yeah, Corbin is tired. Cody, for whatever reason, is tired too. I don't know why. But hey, it is what it is. Let's see.
Chat again.
I feel like my camera's a little hot.
Carson in the chat already. Let's go.
Yes. How's it going, Carson? So, it's been a newsy week. It's been a very newsy week. In good ways and bad ways. Mostly good, actually, I think.
Mostly good, a little weird. There's
Yeah.
some weird stuff happening.
This is what happens when Techtober isn't taken control of by the Giants. Well, okay, actually, I guess still a bunch of Giants are involved, but
Yeah.
yeah, actually, the more I'm thinking about it, the more it's like, no, actually, everything I just said is completely a lie. It's
little local business Adobe.
Yeah, it's
mom and pop shop.
It's Adobe, Apple, Google. The more I think about it, it's like, oh, Microsoft. Yeah, pretty much all of them are actually still involved. Never mind, I'm
little guy Microsoft. Yeah.
I'm a deep fibber.
It's okay. I'll try to forgive you. I'm working on forgiveness.
Nice. Yeah. So, also hello to Austin.
We can talk about Apple first if you want, because that's what I'm most familiar with.
Well, golly, that's an option. Though I feel like most of the news, sort of in one way or another, surrounds Apple.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess means we could start there, but I was also kind of thinking Adobe might just be an easier hit, as like a quick hit.
I need to glance over the Adobe stuff again, because I was reading it before it was announced, and I have not read it since. And okay, there it is. I found my link.
And hey, Diablo, how's it going? Long time no see, bud.
Hello. Yeah, if you want to talk about, I'll put it in the YouTube chat. We can talk about the new regular iPad first, if you like, perhaps.
Okay, so definitely not Adobe first. Got it.
Not Adobe first, because I have to read what that is again.
Okay, so we're really not going to touch Adobe on this stream. I get it. That's pretty much how this is going to go, because I haven't read the news either.
Don't touch Adobe.
Outside of that one thing I commented on in the chat room, I didn't read any of the news that they posted. Mostly because, honestly, it's not interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of... I'll comment on that when we get to that, but... Austin, is Corbin cashing weekly Apple checks now?
Oh, that's going to make the next topic real spicy. Well, the topic that Corbin brought up right before stream.
Yeah, I bought an Apple Watch. I'm a sellout. I've got my memes on here, but yeah, and I don't have a lot of Apple Watch thoughts yet because I've had it for a day, but I did also get a Velcro band for it, which I think looks very nice. But yeah, I don't have any Apple Watch thoughts yet. Besides, it's a smartwatch. It does smartwatch things.
So we can
iPad.
We can definitely start with iPad first.
Okay,
because
iPad.
It is pretty much I would argue, some of the biggest news of the week. I
think so. So Apple has a lot of iPads now, and it's really hard to keep track at this point. But the normal iPad that's just iPad with nothing else is like the cheap one that's been like $320 or $300 for forever. It's floats around there.
The iPad with
And
nothing else, the cheap one, the one that's been floating
yeah,
around $329 or so forever. That is its actual full product name.
yeah,
Just in case
yeah.
anyone was
And
uncertain.
yeah, and they haven't updated it in a while. It's kind of the same thing as the iPhone SE, where it's had the old design for a very long time. Like it all the other iPads got better cameras and like more straight edges on the frame and a bunch of other changes. And the normal iPad was just kind of sitting there, which like for $300, it was still a really good tablet
Oh,
compared
yeah.
to any Android tablet, or for most people better than a Surface, unless you like desperately need a Windows app. And so I'm sure it's still been selling like hotcakes this whole time, even though Apple forgot about it. But they remembered it exists and they updated it. Except not really. So this iPad is very weird, and a lot of other people have commented about how weird it is. So this is just called New iPad, which is not confusing at all. It's the 10th generation normal iPad. And it has the same design language that is now on the rest of the iPads that trickled down from the Pro. So it's like it's like my iPad Air. It's got like a boxy look. It comes in some fun colors. Colors are fun. It has USB Type C instead of Lightning now, which means the iPhone and like AirPods and stuff are the only things left with Lightning.
And the Magic Trackpad. Please, Apple. Apple, I'm telling you. I love this thing, but it drives me nuts using a lightning cable. Fix it.
Yeah. So yeah, USB-C is good. It's got Wi-Fi 6. It's got optional 5G. There's no home button. It's got touch gestures now, and the Touch ID is now on the power button. And the screen size got a little bit bigger. It's now 10.9 inches instead of 10.2. But it's also like, and also it's got the A14 Bionic chip, which is the same chip from the iPhone 12. So it's not the latest thing in the world, but it's very fast. It's fine. I think my iPad either has an A14 or A15. It's like crazy fast, so I'm sure this is fun.
Well,
And
that does have a caveat, and I'm sure we're going to explore this topic quite a bit more in a moment, but it does mean that it's basically feature limited. There are a lot of things that you cannot, you simply don't get if you're on an A series chip as opposed to an M1 chip.
Yeah, like this will probably not get Stage Manager, I don't think.
Exactly.
I think that still needs, I think, like an A15 plus or whatever they call those. I don't let me see. I wrote about this, I should know this, but it's been a long one. Yes, okay, so yeah, Stage Manager, which is the like multitasking layout for iPads, it is available on the A12Z and A12X chips, which were in the iPad Pros. So it has not trickled down to this level. So no Stage Manager for you. This is still the cheap iPad, but it is still like an iPad, so it's pretty good experience. But what's weird about this, there's like two main things that are weird about this. Number one, it has some features that are arguably better than pretty much every other iPad right now, which is always really fun if you like just shell out a lot of money for the Pro. So this tablet has the webcam on the, if you're looking at it, if you're looking at the iPad in landscape mode, the webcam is on the top instead of the side. So this is going to be a lot better for like video calls for most people. Because I don't know about, and I don't know what general usage is like, but the amount of times I've used a tablet in the past 5 years in portrait mode outside of like reading a website or a book is very low. So it kind of surprises me that more tablets aren't doing this. Amazon actually does that with their Fire tablets now. The webcam's on the long side. So that's cool. And they also
doesn't Microsoft also on the Surface Pros?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't really know why Apple didn't do this before. But anyway.
Okay, so really, it's at this stage, it's just the remaining tablets from Apple and basically anything from Samsung.
Samsung is doing this on the. I might be on all of the on the flagship Tab S's now. I know it's on the Tab S8 because they're doing the really silly notch on the higher end S8 tablets, which looks very silly in portrait mode, but is fine in landscape. So yeah, that's nice. That's technically better than every other iPad, including all the Pros. And they also have a completely different keyboard, which has been, it seems like it's a controversial update. So so this is another thing where like Apple has too many iPads, they have too many keyboards as well.
Yes.
So they had the cheap iPad keyboard, which is like a folio case with a little keyboard on the bottom, which wasn't that good. There's not a lot of room for the keys in the form factor they were doing. And then they have the much more expensive Magic. I believe the Magic keyboard is the more expensive one. And that's the one where it like props up the iPad at an angle, like it swivels like a laptop screen. And there's like a USB port on the case itself, and it looks more like a laptop. With this, they're doing something a lot more like the cases for Samsung's tablets, the keyboard cases for Samsung's tablets, and also some Surface stuff. Where the keyboard case is two pieces. There's a part that attaches to the back of the iPad and has a kickstand. And then there is just a keyboard that magnetically attaches to the bottom of the iPad. And that keyboard has full-size keys. It has 1mm of travel. It has a multi-touch touchpad that's bigger than on the older keyboard cases, and supports click anywhere. So I don't know if it's the same like fake taptic thing as MacBook touchpads, but it sounds like it. And so I like this style way more than the Folio keyboards that like Apple's been selling for a while, because like I have this my Apple's right here. So I have one very similar to this made by Logitech. And the reason I like these is I've got my keyboard if I need it. When I don't need it, which is most of the time because it's an iPad, I just clunk, put the keyboard away, and now I've got my iPad with the kickstand, so I can still, watch Netflix, whatever. And when I need the keyboard again, it can just go clunk, clunk. So I like this style. I've seen some complaints about this because it's going to be worse for laptop typing. Because of the like weight distribution. But I don't know. Like none of these tablets are good for that. So like if you really need something that's going to work well with laptop typing, like you get a laptop, or you just find a different way. I mean, this isn't like the worst thing for laptop typing either. It just kind of bounces around a lot. Yeah, and Diablo mentioned the Lenovo Duet has this same kind of keyboard. Yeah, like this is very common. This is exactly like the Surface tablets too, except the iPad still does not have a built-in kickstand, so it needs an extra little case piece for that. But I mean, I like this design more, but I've seen some people online who prefer the other one. And also the fact that like even though this iPad is like basically the same size as other iPads, this isn't compatible with all the other keyboard cases, and this doesn't work with the other ones, which is annoying.
Yeah. So Obviously, that's one thing that drives me kind of crazy about their selection is they keep making an iPad or various versions of iPads match with only certain accessories, and it's not even generational anymore. Obviously, the biggest and most obvious example, the Apple Pencil. They're releasing iPads now that still rely on the first gen Apple Pencil, and the second gen is still limited to. Wait, is it just the Pros, or I want to say it's just for the Pro?
It might be. So yeah, the keyboard is one weird thing. The pencil is the other thing. I don't know. There's a few elements here that makes me think that like Apple had to derail some stuff because of like manufacturing and pricing issues. And one of them is the Apple Pencil. So this only supports the first gen Apple Pencil, which like on its own, I don't think is that big of a deal because the first gen like does everything that most people want out of these styluses. Like it's an active stylus. It's got of layers of pressure sensitivity. If you're like a digital artist, you're probably buying an iPad Pro anyway, or something with a bigger screen at least. But the first gen Apple Pencil is still Lightning, like it plugs into the iPad. So Apple made an adapter that has a USB-C port and a Lightning port. So you need a dongle to charge the pencil. And they are putting that adapter in the box with the Apple Pencils now. And if you already have an Apple Pencil, it's an extra $9. But they don't have an Apple Pencil that's just USB-C. On the Pros is not an issue where you've got your second gen Apple Pencil because it just attaches magnetically and it charges through magnets. So there's no plugging it in at all.
Oh man, I'm looking at the compatibility list for the two, or first and second gen, and wow, it is a mess. the iPad Pro, it's not just iPad Pro versus everything else. It's certain sizes and certain generations are only compatible with the first gen, and then several sizes on several generations are on the second gen pencil. And then they do have a couple of iPad Airs and an iPad Mini that also work with the second generation, but they also have all the regular iPads plus an iPad Mini plus an Air also work with the first gen. This is not a pretty map.
Yeah, I don't know why they won't. Like I know it's probably like slightly more expensive, but it does seem like a weird thing for Apple to do to like maintain both of these indefinitely.
Yeah. Well, and this wouldn't be such an issue if all the new ones coming out just moved to the second gen. But that's the reason that this is relevant.
It's another USB Lightning thing where like it should just all be USB-C, but we're like in this weird state where they don't want to whatever.
Yeah.
And Diablo asked if they used Lightning and made the adapters for school so they didn't have to buy the new pens. They could have made the adapter and also made a USB-C Gen 1 pencil. They could have done both. Like as it stands, like the weird part to me isn't like really the adapter's funny, but the weird part to me is like if I'm going to a store and buying this iPad and I have no, like if I'm getting into iPads for the first time with this iPad and I want the pencil, I have to buy the pencil and the adapter. It's like if someone made a laptop that needed a adapter to charge in the wall. It's kind of silly. So that's like one weird thing. Another weird thing is the pricing on this. I want to imagine Apple when it would make this the same price as the current regular, not special iPad, which is like MSRP is $330. It's on sale for $300 and $270 all the time. But this starts at $449. So they jumped the price by $120.
Oof.
Yeah, and their solution to this is they're keeping this in stock in addition to the old regular iPad. So we're now up to like 4 iPads that are the same screen size. Which like I guess it's good, like, because they're they're iPads, so they're going to be supported with software for forever. I don't know how many years the old iPad has left with iPad OS updates. But I don't envy being the Apple employee that has to explain this to someone walking in the store. Like, well, sir, you've got the iPad, you've got the new iPad, you've got the iPad Air, there's also the Mini in there somewhere.
There is a really mean part of me that wants to walk into an Apple store and just be like, this looks like the right size for me. Sir, can you tell me the differences?
Yeah.
I just want to see them squirm as they're like, oh God, no, not again. Not another.
Breaks out the binder.
Yeah.
Okay.
It walks over and is like, look, how much time you got?
Yeah. It's like a choose your own adventure book. Like, do you want a good stylus? Go to page 7 of the binder.
No, honestly, their best... This is so cynical, but it's also true. The best way they could possibly answer that would just be a straight up, how much money do you have? That decides it. Just tell us how much money you have, what's in your wallet, whatever that number is, we can give you the right iPad to match. Okay?
Yeah, and this is also really funny because, like, if you own an iPad from the last couple years, unless you're like really picky about the display and that kind of stuff, like, there's zero reason for you to buy a new one right now. Unless you're like picky about the screen because they've been updating the screen, or you really want Stage Manager, which isn't even done yet because it's so bad they have to keep reworking it.
Yeah. Though in a moment we are gonna break into but wait, they have more. So I agree. Right now, at this very moment in time, yeah, there's so little reason to upgrade. Coming in a few months or however long, there will be increasing numbers of reasons to upgrade, all software related. Did you want to go to that, or was there other hardware stuff to hit first? I mean, we still have the Pro iPad to talk about, I guess.
There was a new iPad Pro. This is the first iPad with an M2 in it, which right now is about as helpful as the M1 in the iPad was when it was new, which is like, why? Like, right now they're just putting it in there just because
they're already making the chip. Why not just stick it into the iPad instead of making a separate chip for the iPad?
They're like, we want Qualcomm to cry more. We're gonna let's see. This iPad just exists as a flex towards Qualcomm and Samsung.
At this stage, I think it's almost not even so much to make Qualcomm cry as it is make Android users cry.
Yeah, and it has M2. This has Wi-Fi 6E, which I believe this is the first Apple product with 6E. I think
it should be. I can't think of anything else that does.
Yeah, so that's cool. And obviously, there's a 5G option. It's got the second-gen Apple Pencil support. Blah 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 blah. And it costs. Starting price is $800. So once again, that's like MacBook money. I just covered a deal the other day. The M1 Air went back to $800 again. But if you want the best iPad, there it is. It's, now it has a. Yeah, I've been joking this whole time how all these phones and tablets have more RAM than my computers, but now this has a better chip in it than the MacBook Air I just bought.
True. I feel like it is worth calling out because this is where I've seen already a lot of discussion that's kind of ignoring this detail, but this is a base level M2 as opposed to like MacBook Pros come with an M1 Max, an M1 Ultra. Well, the Ultra is in the Studio, I think. What was the other one? There was 4 different sizes, and I'm forgetting.
There's Max and Ultra,
but there was something under Max.
I think it's Pro. I think.
Oh yeah. Pro. It was Pro. So those are all higher end versions of the M1. The M2 is likely to have, I'm going to assume, the same versions. Maybe even another one when they do the Mac Pro. I'm thinking that's probably just going to be another Ultra, but like an Ultra with perks or something. Oh man, I'm picturing an M2 Ultra Plus. If they do that, I'm losing it.
M2 Ultra Pro Max with Sonic at the Olympic Games.
Yeah,
put all the words there.
So point is, the iPad is still going to be on technically the weak side of what the laptops are. So, the M2s came out and everyone was like, oh my god, we need to hurry up and upgrade our M1 whatevers to an M2. And it's like, once everyone was sitting out there benchmarking, it's like, oh no, you stick with an M1 if you have an M1 above the base level. You are not getting any benefit going to an M2 if you're effectively downgrading the station. So yeah, it's still definitely an upgrade from an M1, but it's not like it's rivaling a MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
That being said, oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I wonder how toasty this iPad Pro is gonna get, because that was the issue with the M2. Well, no, I take that back. I'm sorry, because the issue with the M2 was sustained intense workloads, and you can do video editing on an iPad Pro, but probably not super common.
Well,
or you're not rendering for hours on an iPad Pro. Probably you're rendering like your whole movie on iMovie.
So there's obviously going to be a lot more talk about that because of the upcoming DaVinci release, but at present you can obviously use stuff like LumaFusion. You can use there are several video editors on the App Store. You can absolutely use those on any of the iPads now. So there is the capacity to do video editing. Plus iMovie, of course. That being said, yeah, I think the way most people are going to edit video on this is mostly video taken with their iPad or with an iPhone. Because that's the easiest stuff to get onto an iPad. It's objectively a pain in the ass to get anything onto an iPad separate from that. Though, now that you can do at least USB-C to USB-C, you can at least connect cameras and other things. It's just less ideal. However, the thing is, I think if you're working with footage that was recorded in, let's say, ProRes, which any of the current iPhones and iPads do, or if you're working in something that's 1080p, honestly, the strain on a processor or on a M chip is not that high. It can natively decode all of this stuff, and for that matter, it natively encodes pretty much anything you're going to be able to do. So the stress on it is actually not going to be that bad. I mean, you still don't want to necessarily do like an hour render, but you're probably also not going to have that option because most video editing software on an iPad does not really support complicated effects. And if all it's doing is a straight, like, sort of resequencing of video clips, that's very, very easy processing. It's only when you get to effects where things start getting really serious. So I think it'd be fine.
This is the same problem that every single high-end iPad has had for years, where we've got really cool hardware, but we're still questioning when the software will arrive that takes advantage of that.
Well, and to that point, may as well kind of dive into that aspect of it. Or is there anything else to say about hardware first?
No, there's a new Apple TV, but I don't really care.
Oh, actually, I'm mildly curious about that. I might look it up later. But, really quick, also, I did look it up, and the iPhone 14 that just launched has Wi-Fi 6, not 6E. So, yes, this would definitely be the first 6E thing. And it's funny because they were just a month ago, they're like, oh my god, we've got an iPhone that has Wi-Fi 6. Look at how amazing that is. And it's like a month later, I don't know, now we're just updating to the next thing. It's already here. Now your iPhone's slow. Oh, the TV didn't do much? Okay. I guess I probably shouldn't have expected much for what is clearly still a side project. But anyway. So during this weird little 10-minute video that Apple released that was basically just a long ad, they mentioned a lot of things are coming. Let's see, did I... Oh, I did not. So there was a list of like 6 or 7 apps, and I forgot to leave open a tab that listed all of them. Or I think... Oh, no, here it is. So it includes DaVinci Resolve, Adobe Photoshop, Affinity Publisher 2 for iPad, Octane X, UMake, and more. We'll just ignore that the more is vague as hell. But yeah, so some of these things are kind of to be expected. Affinity Publisher 2, it's, okay, you know, Affinity already had Publisher 1 on the iPad. It was pretty much a natural assumption Publisher 2 was coming. I honestly know nothing about Octane X. I don't know anything about UMake. I think none of us know anything about more. And
no.
Then there's Adobe Photoshop. Photoshop, for those who used it, or for those who remember, Photoshop was pre-announced a few years ago as coming to the iPad, and they showed off this really amazing demo of exploring a like 200 megabyte wait, meg or gig? I think it was, I don't remember. Anyway, they showed someone digging around and zooming through a multi-layer massive like super complicated image in an Adobe Photoshop on an iPad. It looked like a really neat demo. Turns out Photoshop then launched on the iPad, and as anyone could point out, it was basically a super lightweight version of Photoshop. It wasn't anything that was promised, or rather, what was promised made it seem like there'd be a lot, and then Adobe delivered something that only delivered exactly on what they said would happen and nothing more. So anyone who actually cares about using Photoshop came away saying, oh yeah, this thing's junk. But hey, it happens. Presumably, the rumor is Adobe's actually going to send a real version of Photoshop this time, and it's going to actually have things that people care about. We'll see. Adobe is possibly the biggest feature tease of the tech world. They love to promise things and then deliver to whatever the hell they deliver. But yeah, we'll see. Things could happen. The big news, as far as Corbin, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I guess that'll be interesting if it happens, but it doesn't really line up with what Adobe's been doing lately. Like they've kind of been doing the same thing that Microsoft is doing, where they have software that's like 30 years old, and it doesn't really work all that well for a lot of stuff, and they can't port it to new platforms. Like I don't know how many years we've been waiting for Photoshop for Linux, but it keeps not happening. So what like Adobe was doing first with Lightroom is they just like made an all new Lightroom in like a different framework that works on way more stuff, and they've been slowly adding to it, but it seems like they're still actively developing both versions because they can't get everyone to switch off. So I'm sure it's just this massive pain now.
Yeah,
And
yeah, plenty of people have complained about the
yeah,
new one, and some people even find it insulting that the old one has been called classic, because it is very much the much higher used thing. Photographers largely won't even touch the other.
yeah. I mean, I like the new Lightroom, but also I am not a professional photographer. I just need to make like 5 little tweaks to whatever I'm taking, and it's done. But and now they've been doing that same thing with Photoshop, where they have like a Photoshop for really just the iPad. They don't even have this on Android yet, which is weird.
I don't think it's that weird.
I think it's weird when Lightroom has been on Android tablets for a long time, and this isn't. That's strange. But they have this version, and they're also working on a Photoshop web app, which is comparable in functionality almost to the iPad app. Maybe it's sharing some code, I don't know. But they're very clearly ramping that up. So now it's in the same situation where there's like multiple versions of this app, in the same way that like Microsoft does this too, where they have like the normal Word, and then they have Word on Android and iPad, which is a different code base, but it has most of the stuff you want, and then there's Word on the web browser. So it'd be kind of weird for Adobe to implying full Photoshop is coming to the iPad makes me think that they want to like try to port the Mac app. But I don't know if they do that. That isn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm reserving judgment because, again, it's Adobe. They've promised so many things and notoriously don't deliver on them. Meanwhile, they still keep coming out with things that are impressive or good or useful. So
yeah,
like it's
Adobe's such shit at software development.
Kind
of,
yeah.
It's incredible. Like I couldn't even, I've been paying for Creative Cloud for years. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing it, but on my computer's been running Linux. So I was really just using Lightroom on my Android tablet, and occasionally, like, I'd boot up Windows if I really needed Photoshop. And then I switched all my stuff to Windows, and I could use Photoshop more. And it's such a piece of shit on Windows. It's so slow. And then I switched to Mac, and it boots up instantly.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's still not like that good. There's still a lot of parts of the app that haven't been touched in 5 years. They do again, like Microsoft does, like it's just a business software thing where they can't like remove some stuff, or they won't remove it for years, so not to make anyone annoyed. So they just add new menus that are kind of the same thing. Like there's like 10 different ways to use the content aware fill now. So like there's that kind of stuff, but like they the window their Windows software is not good.
No.
And obviously I tried the iPad app for like an hour because I'm like, oh, I pay for this and I have an iPad now, I should try this. And like it's kind of cool. Like it's better than anything on Android, because like for years I was looking for something on Android that just had layers. I don't even really need like like advanced like paintbrushes and stuff like that. Just let me fucking make an image with layers. And this does have that, but it's obviously still pretty basic.
Yeah. So I I like the possibility of them bringing some more features and functionality to the iPad. If for any other reason than at least it's another place where it could be useful. On the other side of it, I don't know. It seems like their interest in mobile is still so limited. I'm not really convinced that Adobe cares. I think they want to sell things on mobile because they're being told mobile's important, but I don't think they see it as a place where they're ever going to like they put so much of the ideal on being for professionals that I think they're just sitting there going, well, no professional's ever going to do this mobile. Why should we do that?
Right.
And at the end of the day,
Or they're like, I know the main reason why Photoshop on the web exists right now, and also Lightroom has kind of had this for a while, is this idea of like you're just making little tweaks. Like you're like on your way to a business meeting, you realize, oh, I forgot to remove this like one little blemish from my image. Let me do that real quick. All I have with me is my iPad. So like that's part of the equation too. But yeah, I don't know. It's just it's weird. Like unless Apple's paying them, I'm like unless Apple's paying them or they like built all of this on top of a very Apple stack. I don't know why this is only on the iPad, and also why development's kind of slow.
well, I think the slow development is again purely because Adobe just doesn't care.
Because like the new Lightroom, like, you know, whatever complaints someone might have with it, it seems to be the same code base on everything. Like the Lightroom on my iPad is pretty much identical to the new Lightroom on my Mac. But I don't know what they're doing with the Photoshop.
Well, I've heard some things about the code base for the new Lightroom that would make that make sense. For Photoshop, I mean, they're still running on a code base from 2 decades ago that's just continually been updated. I think that's probably the biggest factor. Anything new anything they release Photoshop related, in all likelihood, is a completely new development where they're just slowly copying over features. And I could see that taking a long time, especially since, at least to some extent, they're probably doing it semi-native for anything where they're going to build it. So I could see that taking a long time. That would be justified. The problem, of course, being at least in the past, they've still continued to never actually release anything people want to use.
Yeah, no, like I was looking through everything they announced for Adobe Max, and it's like minor improvements to like selecting and content aware, which is like cool and all, but like for the money Adobe gets out of me, I better have where's my Photoshop for Linux, first of all. Second of all, why is the Windows app complete shit? Like I have questions, Adobe. I don't know what you're doing over there. You know how long it took for them to add export with watermark to the new Lightroom? It took them ages. I literally made a web app to do this, and it took me a total sum of maybe like 30 hours, 40 hours, something. I don't even know how all this stuff worked before then.
Yeah, no, I think that in particular is one of their gross oversights. And I'm assuming it ended up on a to-do list at some point, and every manager just kept saying, oh no, we need to get to that. Let's do it next week.
Yeah.
And it just never became next week.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna. I stocked up on 1-year subscriptions to Creative Cloud a couple years ago when they were on sale. I have not seen a sale since then in a long time, and so whenever my subscription ends up, I don't know if I'm gonna keep it. We'll see.
Yeah. Even though this wasn't really something I expected to be a topic, I gotta say, I'm at that place where my stocked up subscriptions have elapsed, and I am now on month to month, and I'd kind of like to not be. So I love Photoshop. I really like using Photoshop. I could care less about Lightroom. Honestly, there are a bunch of, if you talk to a lot of photographers, they'll tell you there are just simply better software packages out there, and they're one-time purchases. Now, granted, you got to pay for upgrades on those, but you know, you don't even really need the upgrades on most of them. So you could go buy Capture One, and it is just simply a much better raw processing tool. And Capture One's not even the only one. There are actually about a handful that are really good raw processors, at least half of which have much better reputations than Lightroom. But you know, I'm already paying, as I see it, I'm paying for Photoshop, and Lightroom comes free, so I'm not going to go get something else.
Yeah, my usage has flipped over the past couple months because I was mostly using Lightroom for when I was doing reviews and I was taking pictures of stuff, and I don't really do reviews anymore. So really it's just for, you know, once in a while where I don't really see a photo I like for whatever I'm writing about, and I have the thing, I'm just like, all right, I'll take a picture and edit this in Lightroom in 5 minutes. But I use Lightroom, I use Photoshop daily now. Now that I'm on a platform that is actually on it and it works well on. So, Diablo said, is the subscription model supporting storage or anything, or straight just sees it all as a way to go? Creative Cloud does have cloud storage, so you're like kind of paying for storage. It's not a lot. I think
okay.
Mine has like 20 gigs. I don't know.
So Creative Cloud itself, if you pay for anything, then you get some small amount of Creative Cloud storage. You can also upgrade the storage aspect of Creative Cloud to get way more storage. But their subscription model is mostly based on the software, not on the storage. So, you know,
because like you can use all this without touching the cloud storage. It's really just like the new Lightroom that really wants you to use the cloud storage.
Well, it's a lot more. It's all of them. Photoshop recently added the cloud storage aspect. Prior to that, they kind of didn't. But
yeah, like when I reinstalled Photoshop and I saved a file the first few times, it's like, do you want to save it in the Adobe Cloud Storage? I'm like, no, I fucking don't. I just want the JPEG. Give me the JPEG. Yeah.
So, just to give context, because just to make this super, super easy. So Adobe Creative Cloud, basically the way that it works is you can license a single app for $20 a month, which is understandable for the quote professional level software, but it's expensive, especially if you need to get a lot of, or if you need to get more than one thing. For $50 a month, you just get everything in Creative Cloud, which $50 a month is a pretty expensive subscription. But to be fair, if you needed to get, let's say, Photoshop, Premiere Pro, and After Effects, those three alone would cost you $60 a month. So it just makes sense to spend the $50 and get everything. They happen to also have what's called the photographer's bundle, which is just Photoshop and Lightroom, and that's what every blogger, pretty much every blogger is doing that, because it's $10 a month and you get 2 apps. Again, this is the obvious choice. I don't think very many people out there get just one app, because it's dumb.
I see a lot of the photography bundle, or people just get the whole shebang.
Yeah. Oh, hey, they raised whoa, wow. They raised some prices. Holy crap. Okay, my understanding of prices has been outdated. So yikes. Okay, so Creative Cloud is now $55 a month instead of $50. So that's a small change, but still, that's another $60 a year. The photography bundle apparently is $20. I guess.
No. Okay, if you click on it, it says there is a Lightroom and Photoshop with 20 gigs of storage for $9.99, and then a 1 terabyte for $19.99.
Oh, okay.
So
that makes sense.
I think I have the 20 gig one. That's why Lightroom keeps yelling at me, because I'm running out of storage.
All right. I don't know where to find that on the page I found, but I'm not too worried about it. I'm not looking for it. Just the page I found specifically is plans and pricing for Creative Cloud apps, and there is no.
That's where I am.
Wait. Wait. Okay, there is a compare plans just for that bundle, and that has it. Okay.
I wonder why they're not showing the cheaper plan. It's a total mystery.
Yeah.
I wonder which one they want you to buy.
And then I noticed, weirdly, if you just want to get certain apps, some of them are $21 a month and some are $20. All the popular ones are $21. Which, yeesh. Not loving this. So anyway.
Oh man, they still make Dreamweaver?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, yeah, anyway, this is expensive. I mean, the photography bundle kind of makes sense. $120 a year to get a really good photo editing app, a really good color app for photos, 2 apps together. Like, it's actually a pretty decent, understandable price. But to be fair, you can also buy Affinity Photo for $49 and just use that. And it's different. It does lack some features, but man, when you look at that price difference, Photoshop starts getting harder and harder to justify, which is why I'm getting very close to just abandoning both of them.
Yeah, like my problem with Adobe, besides the fact that they're money-sucking evil corporation, is
they're just greedy. I wouldn't go to evil. Hey, compare them to GoDaddy, compare them to Oracle, compare them to we talk about evil corporations so often. Let's be honest, Adobe is just greedy and incompetent. They don't hit the standard by which we typically define evil.
That's true. They're not funding war crimes. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So like my issue with, like, I haven't used Acrobat and Illustrator and like that kind of stuff. But like my issue with Adobe is like they were kind of the first to the scene with this idea of, not first, but they were like one of the first examples I remember of a yearly software package switching to a subscription.
Mm-hmm.
And they're charging out the nose for it. And they have the problem where they don't really justify it.
Yeah.
Like I think Lightroom they are making pretty substantial improvements to that constantly, but that's because it started in an abysmal state, the new Lightroom. With Photoshop, the base Photoshop functionality has not changed for almost the entire time I used it. And I used I used a lot of like CS3, and I played around with CS1 a little bit. It's like the same thing. Really, it's what's just changing is the menus look different, and the like if excluding the new content aware stuff, which is actually cool. Like that one thing. If I went back to CS6 right now, I'd be fine. I could probably even go back to CS3 and not really tell a difference. Except I would have to convert WebP files first before I could open them. Like it's just not changing that much.
So I'm going to acknowledge that they have definitely added more to Photoshop than that.
Like this, yeah. Like this is
they do
this
have
is
some
definitely
smart
from
selection stuff.
Yeah,
which
this is definitely from a me perspective,
right?
Of, like,
okay,
things I'm using.
Yeah, they have some smart selection stuff that I think is pretty impressive. They have some, like, well, you could almost say that this is content aware fill, but it's not. They have like sky replacement, which has become super common in everything now. But you know, they were the first to get there. Well, they weren't even the first. Luminar was the first. Adobe was second because they were copying Luminar. But they added some other replacement stuff and some good photography or some good editing features that are pretty advanced. So I have to give them that. They have definitely added things, but they're not. In terms of still, like what 90% of their users actually use Photoshop for, yeah, they haven't changed or improved any of that stuff, which to some extent, like that's kind of good. People learned one way to do a certain thing and they're not messing with it. There's something to be said for that.
Right, but then don't charge prices for it like you're like recoding the app every 6 months.
Exactly.
That's more my issue with it.
Well, yeah, I think, and I've said this before, actually, I've filled out a lot of those user survey things saying outright, literally I've written in, I could get like 40 or 50 people I know to pay for Photoshop as like, just give like advanced basic features, you know, give us the layers, give us all the mainstream tools, give us content aware fill, give us all that stuff. Just charge like $2 a month.
Yeah.
Maybe like 3 or 4, whatever, but charge way less.
Yeah.
And just give those pared down features. You would have so many more people paying for it. The number of subscribers would probably amplify by 10. Meanwhile, it would benefit them. They would make more money. I'm not seeing a reason for them not to do that, except I think they figure they'd lose some small shred of the ones they already have.
Yeah, it's frustrating because like I just finished writing an editorial. I'm not sure when it's going to go up, but I was writing about how insane of a deal that is Microsoft 365, which used to be Office 365, because for one person, which is probably comparable to the Adobe thing, because you can only have this installed on 2 computers, which pisses me off more. The single person plan for Microsoft 365 is $7 a month, and they give you Word, Excel, PowerPoint, a terabyte of OneDrive storage, access to the like web apps for Office, which are pretty good now. The OneDrive app on iPhone and Android is photo backup, so it's like Google Photos, except you don't get the cool AI like naming thing. Like I can't search my dog's name and see all my dog's pictures. There's a Grammarly clone. They have Microsoft Editor, which I've been using for a couple months, is good. It unlocks features in their Clipchamp video editor. Like it has all this stuff, and it's $7 a month. And like Office is kind of in the same zone as Photoshop and Lightroom, where like it hasn't substantially changed in forever because it doesn't really need to. but it does still get like Microsoft's doing the Adobe thing of like just adding nice features every now and then, but they're charging way less for it. And like I know part of this is because Microsoft is like a giant corporation and they have like a million other things they make money from. This doesn't need to make them buckets of money, but Adobe's like kind of in that zone too, where like they have different pricing for like corporate customers. So like I don't. That's what kind of frustrates me is I see Microsoft adding a lot of value with their stuff in a similar zone of like this isn't. These are apps that have been around for 2 or 3 decades, and they're just slightly better, slightly getting better.
They're adding value, but not charging as aggressively
Right.
in pricing, and they're giving you more in terms of like storage and a wider breadth of features.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was writing this up and like this isn't like comparable to anything Adobe does, but the family plan of Microsoft 365 supports up to 5 people, and each person gets a terabyte of storage. So up to 6 terabytes. Google doesn't do that. They for that same the family plan at Microsoft costs $10 a month. $10 a month at Google gets you a shared pool of 2 terabytes. So again, just like that's what frustrates me is I see a lot of other companies doing this subscription thing, and even I think Microsoft is like the perfect example because their main value there is software that hasn't changed in forever. I could still use like Word 2002 and it's fine. It does most of what I need it to do. But it's so cheap that I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll pay for this. I want the cloud storage. Like I don't really see that with Adobe. Like $20 a month for some, and like once a year they add a couple things that are kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
At least from my perspective, I'm not a graphic designer for a living. I don't use every Photoshop feature under the sun, but I'm sure there's a lot of people in my position of like using Photoshop a lot, but only needing like a fraction of what it does. And they'd rather me just pay for all the stuff I don't use.
Yeah, and that consistently is one of my biggest complaints about Adobe is clearly their business model is you want to use something today, we want to charge you at least for a month of it. And
right.
Chances are, because if you've ever used their subscription system, it is a real nuisance to unhook from a subscription. So they kind of expect you to be lazy and forget to unsubscribe, and then 6 months down the line when you realize, oh yeah, I've now paid $120 for Photoshop, can I not be doing that now? You know, you've now spent that much, which is a professional app's worth of price, and you used it maybe a few times. That's kind of what feels like the scam for a subscription to this software. So yeah, I'm not a fan. And here we weren't going to talk about the we weren't going to talk about Adobe news, and we just managed to talk about Adobe without talking about the actual news.
It's so easy to make fun of them.
I feel like we're not making fun so much as we're just hitting them really hard with bats.
Yeah, they deserve it.
They do. So I'm not really going to actually talk about their news so much, but I do want to. I quickly touched on this in the chat, but I just found it interesting that they're talking up a partnership with Leica and Nikon to add content authenticity technology. I'm hoping that this is some sort of a method of like signing your images to show that they're original out of camera. But I just can't help but think that there's probably something fishy about this. And I'm so nervous that this is like leading down the blockchain kind kind of strategy. And if it is, please no, go away. Because Adobe has already started the whole NFT thing. Like, this is a feature that is now built into Photoshop. I'm hoping that that does not continue or progress further.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, that, I don't know. I'm not sure if there was any other really relevant news. Adobe's press room has been posting pretty heavily for the last couple of days, so oh yeah, they're also hyping up their metaverse stuff, which
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I saw that again. I was mostly paying attention to the Photoshop stuff, and they have better AI selection stuff now, which again is cool. But I don't. I just need it to not cost. I need this to not be like my most expensive subscription besides like my insurance and my housing.
Yeah, actually, I didn't really think about it that way, but yeah. No, I think I have one thing that costs a little bit more than that, but not by much.
Yeah, because like this is my. I'm on a yearly something. I don't know off the top of my head when it runs out, but like if I open my my monthly budget or Excel sheet I have, I don't think there's anything on here that's more than $20 a month that isn't. I think it's the only thing besides my car payments and my apartment.
The real life stuff versus.
Oh, I'm sorry. My phone is now $60 a month.
Yeah, I was gonna say phone too, but I was counting that as real life stuff.
Yeah.
To me, somehow paying for software like this does not feel like real life stuff. It feels like
because like
optional
I don't like
stuff.
Really, like I don't really need Photoshop. I can live with something else if I have to. But like I'm living in this country almost requires me to have a car, and I obviously have to pay rent.
Yeah. These are not optionals. And while you might have some choices in how you go about doing some of these things, or how much they're going to cost you, paying for this software monthly, not a requirement. Actually, now that we've talked about it so much, I'm toying with the idea of just doing like a 1 month or 2 month, just like not killing my subscription to Adobe, but just trying to use Affinity Photo instead, just to see if it'll work. And if that works, I might just make the push to move away from Lightroom after that, because that would be really easy. I know I can move away from Lightroom. It would be harder to move away from Photoshop, but if I can do that, problem solved.
Yeah, I might look at that at some point. My big tech migration right now is obviously I've bought too many Apple things, and also I might be moving all of my main ecosystem from Google over to Microsoft, because again, 365 is really good. I'm already using OneDrive cloud storage, which is the Mac app is like okay, but the rest of it's fine. And like the Office apps are pretty good, and I've been testing using Outlook.com as my main email instead of Gmail, and it's doing a marginally better job at filtering out junk. So, I'm gonna keep experimenting with that.
I love that you're saying marginally better.
Yeah. Oh, I saw one got through, but other than that, it's been smooth sailing.
Yeah, you've been talking about it a lot, and it seems like you were a lot happier with it. So.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like my Gmail inbox is like what everyone complains that their spam texts are like, which I've avoided that problem. My inbox is a mess, partially because of actual spam that Gmail should be catching, but also because PR people keep emailing my main email and not my work email. Which is really fun. Although what I like that Outlook does is when you block people, you can specify an address or an entire domain, which I would have to make a rule for in Gmail, which takes longer. So I've just been adding every single like PR agency's domain to that list. It's been going good.
Yeah, my to be fair, also with the Gmail interface, you now have sort of all of your rules are being bundled together, and since you can't name them, that leads to a lot of messiness. And as you pointed out previously, you can actually name them in Outlook, which, holy crap, I would kill for. I want so badly for Gmail to have the ability to name filters. I could do so much with that. But anyway, so moving to software that doesn't suck. The other part of the big announcement for the iPad is DaVinci Resolve. There is a lot we don't know. I don't want to go too far down the road of speculating, like, how much is it going to cost, or will it cost anything at all? Maybe it'll be free. Maybe they're going to try to make money off of their Blackmagic Cloud is what it's called, which is a collaborative tool, but logically it also it would make sense if you want to start editing on the iPad and then move over to another computer, you would use our cloud service for it. And there's so many ways to dig in on this, but for right now, the biggest note is this is coming in the future. There is no timeline offered, but presumably I think most people assume this is going to be within the next 6 months. Let's see. One of the biggest theories is that they might be waiting until NAB, which is a show that takes place in Las Vegas. It's for the National Association of Broadcasters. And according to a quick search, it looks like that would be in mid-April. So in theory, maybe it'll come in April of next year. There was no promise of when DaVinci was going to launch this. Just that seems like a likely possibility.
Okay. Quick question.
Yeah.
I briefly had to answer text. I don't know what we're talking about. What's happening with DaVinci?
Possible release dates. It was the point of that.
For a new update or a new app, or
for the iPad app.
Okay, I see. All right, I'm sorry, I'm caught up now.
Yeah. So if that happens, okay, whatever. I think no one's really expecting this to launch next week, but I think logically, since Apple is showing it off in their advertising, it would presumably be at least within the year, hopefully sooner. Diablo,
that'd be cool.
Diablo asks, is this on Android tablets? No. No, it's definitely not, and probably will not be anytime soon.
No.
So
yeah, that would be. I know you were talking about, like, this would be the thing that makes, like, M2 matter. Like, they might lock it to, like, specifically that, or M1, like just one of those chips.
Yeah, I'm personally feeling like this should be able to be fine on an M1. There's no good argument I'm aware of for why it can't be M1, why it would have to be M2. But
because, like, Final Cut Pro is also on M1.
Well, not on an iPad.
Right. But, like, same hardware.
Yeah. Well, if you pick up, you can go to, or, well, I guess you can't do this now, but if you had gone to an Apple store and bought a MacBook Air with an M1 chip in it, are they still selling those? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you bought a baseline MacBook Air, the original M1 MacBook Air, you could run Final Cut or DaVinci Resolve on it just fine. It would run them really well. Obviously, there were some limits. They didn't perform as well as Certainly newer versions of M1s, higher end specs or in M2, but they ran fast, they decoded really well, they did a good job. Logically, the same thing should be true on an iPad, but maybe there's something about the M2. Maybe it does have some feature that makes it more mobile friendly to that situation. I don't know. It's total speculation. Yeah. So,
I know someone, I don't know if it was Diablo or not, but someone brought up that like iPad apps used to be limited by how much RAM was available to them. That could be an issue. I don't know if that's fixed. I know like the main reason M1 and M2 are so good for video editing is because they have so many specialized cores. So I don't know if all those cores are necessarily available to iOS apps. It wouldn't surprise me if maybe Apple was keeping that for themselves or just didn't bother to implement it because no one's made a DaVinci Resolve for iPad OS yet.
Yeah.
I know there's like other video editors, but this would be presumably a league up from what is currently available. So I don't know. It's interesting. Like I'm interested to see what happens because that has been the problem with iPad is like nothing is properly taking advantage of the hardware. Or I shouldn't say nothing, but it's underutilized.
According to one article I'm seeing, wait, can that be? Okay. According to one article I see on Mac Rumors, iOS or iPad OS 15 allows apps to use up to 12 gigabytes of RAM.
Okay.
What is that up from though? It looks like, okay, previously it looks like it was 8 gigs of RAM. Oh no, sorry, 6. But it looks like it was dependent on how much an iPad had.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
like
so it definitely like cordons off some portion of it for the OS, and then depending on how much there is, it scales on how much it allows. But it doesn't scale relative to the amount. It just scales up. At least that's kind of what I'm gathering from looking at this. So, seeing as even the current iPad Pro, if you get the smaller storage sizes, you only get 8 gigs of RAM. If you get the larger, the 1 terabyte and above sizes, it becomes 16 gigs of RAM. So, yikes.
It's like Android phone rules.
Yeah, pretty much. Which this now has me curious. In order to get a good size amount of RAM, let's just go with a smaller iPad, because why not? Space gray, because that's the best color. 1 terabyte, that's what you have to spend in order to get 16, and we'll go Wi-Fi, because why not? Holy crap, we're at $1,500. Just go buy a MacBook Air.
MacBook Pro, honestly.
Yeah, actually, yeah. You can get a MacBook Pro for that. Not the good ones, but yeah.
An old good one.
Yeah.
Get a good M1 Pro on Swappa for that, probably.
Yeah, maybe.
If it's been bumped a couple times.
Yeah. A couple of dents, nothing special. So
Diablo said the chips on the iPad are the same, only the UI difference. So in theory, everything can be ported. Not everything. Apple's still picky. Like notably, you still cannot have apps that execute arbitrary code.
Yeah.
So, that's why there's not like an Xcode on the iPad that someone else can make. Only Apple can do that.
Mm-hmm.
There's no virtual machines officially on the iPad. There is UTM if you do the stuff. I haven't used UTM on the iPad, but on the Mac it is pretty nice. Very slow with x86 though. That's expected.
Yeah,
But
they do have a couple of close arrangements with companies where they kind of look the other way, but for the most part, yeah, there are a lot of strict rules about what you're allowed to put on a store. Um, so also, there are obviously some. Okay, you mentioned UI differences. There are also platform differences. As much as they say that it's using the same SDK, and it is. I mean, it very much is. There are actually still some platform differences that are just iPad OS versus Mac OS differences. It's not hardware stuff as much anymore. It's really just the
right.
operating systems do have some functional differences that factor in. So, like accessing a path, asking for permissions, things like that. Some of these things do vary. And
yeah, and it depends on what toolkit or framework an app was made with. Because like Mac apps, you can port pretty much anything that's like okay with Unix. But like iPad, like you cannot have an Electron app on iPad or Android. I mean, you could have it on Android. No one's done it because it's a horrible idea. But you can't.
Yeah.
You couldn't on an iPad either because that's executing arbitrary code because it's an entire JavaScript engine in your app. And I don't know what the status of like, Qt and like GTK are for iPad OS if those exist, but like there's a lot of apps in those. So yeah. So like usually like part of this process is like number one, you have to have something that's good with touch, and then number two, you have to have something that like actually exists on the iPad or can exist. So it's a lot of work either way, which is like I'm sure that's why like a lot of these video editors are slow, because I don't know what DaVinci Resolve is right in, but I'm sure it's some like cross-platform thing that they started on 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
I feel like I looked it up once, but I don't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it looks and works exactly the same across both operating systems. So, and Unix, well, Linux, whatever. Yeah, it actually works there too, and feels and operates the same. So yeah, it definitely has to be something that's very cross-platform friendly. Probably Qt. That would have to be my guess. Anyway, yeah, it works great though. But when it comes right down to it, yeah, there are other platform differences, and that does interfere. Plus, a lot of software wasn't written in the newer frameworks from Apple. Some of it is. Some of it's been ported, some of it's been rewritten. But there's a lot of stuff that even Apple makes that hasn't been moved to newer code bases. Mm-hmm. So as a result, they still have a lot of things that are written in Objective-C using really old frameworks. And that stuff might look good now. It's still not. It's not on the newest stuff, which makes it not the easiest thing for porting to iPad. And if Apple's not doing that yet, you can assume plenty of other companies aren't either. Not to say that it can't be done or won't be done, just, all that stuff is... It is a work in progress. DaVinci Resolve is a Flutter app. That'd be awesome. But yeah, anyway... So, let's see, what else, or what was I going to say? Yeah, so what they are bringing over is actually really interesting, because it is not a complete version of DaVinci Resolve, but that's not necessarily a bad or surprising thing. What's surprising is actually how much they're bringing over. I'm not going to go into I'm not going to go into all of it, but if anyone wants to watch a short YouTube video, it's about 10 minutes. I just pasted a link to the video. That guy basically does the whole dig through the screenshots and point out the differences. But the key things I'm going to point out, one, DaVinci Resolve itself has 7 what they call pages. Some people refer to as tabs. It's media, which is for importing all of your media, categorizing, organizing, whatever. The cut page. Cut is sort of a fast-paced, easy-to-work-with editor. This page is part of the iPad version that they demonstrated. Note, if you're looking at the zoomed-in page that I have here, you'll see there's only 2 icons there at the bottom. Out of those 7, there are only 2. The third typical tab is the edit page. This is a lot like the cut page, but more feature-rich. It allows you more fine-grained control. It allows you to do things like L cuts and J cuts, which you can't do otherwise. And L cuts and J cuts, just for quick reference, that's where the audio of one clip starts before the clip actually starts showing. That's called a J cut. And L cut is where the audio would actually start after the clip is already showing. People don't usually do that. just for reference, people do very few L cuts. Anyway, the fourth tab or page is called Fusion. That's for special effects, masking, tracking, all that kind of stuff. The fifth tab is called Color, and that's what in this background image you see here. DaVinci Resolve is famous for its color grading, and people have looked at this page and said it is basically identical to the desktop version, which is amazing, because literally, like, there are editors out there who used to do all of their editing in like Adobe Premiere or Final Cut or even Avid, but they would then export their projects to DaVinci just to do the coloring, because DaVinci's coloring controls are ridiculously powerful. I mean, you can do things in this that make Photoshop look chintzy in terms of like the power of your color grading tools. It's insane. And that part is apparently going to be on the iPad full force, which, cheers. This alone makes me want to get an iPad. Then the final 2 tabs, one is called Fairlight. That's where all the audio editing happens. And this actually has a lot of people concerned, because audio editing is kind of a big deal for videos. You don't necessarily need to mess with it. A lot of vloggers will not need to touch that. But if you're the kind of person who does, it's not great that that's not there. So people are hoping that that's the next thing that gets added. And so finally, there is what's called the Deliver page. Deliver is literally just your export settings and stuff like that. Seeing as how the iPad is likely only to support a limited set of codecs for output, they've already kind of shown there's just going to be a button you can click and export for some presets. It's going to be a pared down interface, but it'll be fine. That's good enough. Anyway, so Corbin, go ahead. You were about to say.
I was just gonna say, so obviously I've not used DaVinci Resolve, but the main thing that sticks out to me here is this seems like the most dense touch interface I've ever seen in my life. This is it. Like this, it really seems like this is meant just for. I don't even know how good this would be with like the touchpad in iPad OS, because the touch, if you've ever used it, it's not like a mouse pointer, it's like actually like a finger that goes around the screen. And it seems like there's a lot of stuff in this that you want more precision on, which is, I'm interested to see how that works.
So it's funny you mention that, because in Apple's video, they actually have a little moment where they use the Apple Pencil
Okay.
to mess with this, which to me is not a great sign. It does sort of lead down that road of, are you expected to use a stylus to modify things?
Yeah. Do I want to use a stylus while editing an entire movie on my iPad? I don't know.
Probably not, but
Yeah.
I would counterpoint that with, if what you're doing is spending all your time in the editing interface, they show someone using that with touch, and that would be fine. Honestly, like that would be pretty easy to do. You might, for really precise, like getting it down to frame position, you might need to have a different interface. Probably not, honestly. You just need to zoom in a lot, I think.
Yeah, that was my other point. Is like, this seems really dense, and also, this seems like it really needs a big boy iPad.
Yeah. Well, the M2 and M1 and M2 really are predominantly to the larger iPads anyway. So that kind of fits.
Well, I think Apple, they really just have the two sizes now. They have like a 10-inch roughly and a 12-inch, I believe. I don't
Technically
know.
it's 11 and 12, but whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's like whatever close to that. I don't think they have anything bigger. So yeah, so like I've tried to do my work on my iPad a couple times because I'm like, well, this is supposedly the golden standard for tablet productivity outside of like a Surface, and I've tried using this, and like the apps and the software are fine, but I literally do not have enough room to work on this.
Yeah.
And that's partially because my work, what works the best, and the reason why I have an ultrawide on my monitor is, like, ideally I have my editor on one half of the screen and whatever I'm writing about on the other. And I can't really do this on a 10-inch iPad.
Yeah.
or a 10-inch laptop either. Like, it's not even specific to the iPad. So I know this is like different, but also with how much they're packing into this interface, that's gonna not be super fun on a 10-inch iPad or an iPad Mini. I'm sure they're gonna put an M1 in a Mini at some point, if they haven't already. I don't think they have, but
they have not that I've seen. Actually, the Mini seems to be their now forgotten lost child of the iPad line.
I think it got updated last year, I think.
Yeah, it has been, but if I remember, I think people were complaining that it got
it does
get update in
infrequent.
September 2021.
Okay, so yeah, it does get the infrequent updates. It's like iPhone SE schedule.
Yeah, the biggest problem is, if I remember, the last update it got was also pretty minor, which left it feeling more outdated. I could be wrong on that, but I think that was the case. Anyway.
Yeah. And someone
sorry, Hoopy says it's modern design with USB-C. Okay. I'm mistaken.
It does have C. And Hoopy said we're going to see a lot of DaVinci Resolve on an external monitor with iPadOS 16.
Very possibly.
Yeah, again, like, the Stage Manager stuff is like totally in flux right now. Right now in the betas, Apple has completely turned off all external display support because, like, it does not work well right now.
Yeah.
So they've like adjusted this. So, like, before, Stage Manager was only on M1 iPad, and it was on the iPad itself, and you could plug in a screen. And what they've done now is they're extending the on iPad Stage Manager, which doesn't seem that useful. Especially the way they've implemented it. Like, obviously, Samsung DeX on a 10-inch Samsung tablet is pretty nice, but that's not what this is.
Yeah.
So they've changed how it works on the iPad, so they have moved it back. Now you don't need an M1, you need like the stage, one stage down from that, which is like the A15X and stuff. But they've completely turned off the external display stuff. So I don't know what they're gonna do there. Whenever they work it out, I guess that'd be cool for this. Or at the very least, I know before Stage Manager was a thing, or iPad apps could use a second monitor or an external monitor as like another screen. So like if you had like a keynote presentation, you could have the presentation on the external monitor, like you're plug it into your work projector.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see them doing something like that too.
Yeah.
As like a put your preview on the big screen, and the iPad is just for edits, or the other way around.
It definitely wouldn't be the other way around because you have to interact with the iPad.
Well, yeah, but you could do it with a mouse.
Yeah, which also leads to the other point. They, in their preview, they very clearly were using this on a keyboard with trackpad. So you don't have to use a stylus. You could just be using the trackpad, and that would give you your full editing capabilities. So I think that there's options here, and the ways that you would likely use this make a lot of sense. It's just the catch that you're now going to be using it on a screen that is, say, 10 to 12 inches instead of what I would consider the bare. Let's see, the smallest MacBook of any form is 13, right?
I believe so.
Or is it 12?
Or like 12 point something high that's close to 13.
Yeah. Or maybe it was. Yeah. I'm starting to wonder: is there a MacBook Air that's 11?
There was a long time ago, and slightly more recently there was a 12-inch Air, but now it's, I believe, smallest is 13.3.
Okay.
But yeah, and I think that's also another reason, like partially reason why we still don't have a lot of like super hardcore productivity apps on iPad, because like the screen is too small. Like,
yeah, it's not great.
You need more space with this. Like, there's a reason a lot of like professionals have giant monitors or multi-monitor setups, because like it really helps.
That being said, I think it is worth acknowledging both a bonus or a benefit and a caveat to this whole thing, which is versus Mac OS. You do not have a dock. Granted, that dock can be hidden, but you don't have a dock to contend with, so that's not taking any lower space. You also don't have the menu bar at the top taking up space, so you technically do regain a little bit of screen space. Right. The obvious massive caveat, look, if you've used DaVinci Resolve, you can do a whole hell of a lot with the interface, but there's times where you still have to hit the menus. So I'm not sure how they're going to contend with the fact that there's a lot of functionality buried in the menus that you would have trouble adding to the interface. So do those features get lost? Do you have to work around them? Is this stuff that you just accomplish with like long presses and gestures or something else? I don't know. But yeah. That still, one way or the other, that does technically bring back some amount of screen real estate.
Yeah, Hoopy brought up
no function keys either.
Yeah, no function keys. It's again, I don't know how much of a deal it is for this, but it is like another example of like, yeah, another reason why like some stuff is harder to port.
Yeah.
Or just isn't as quick, I should say. Like everything takes a little bit longer.
Though it's worth noting, DaVinci Resolve does not, in my recollection, use the function keys, the actual FN keys, with very much frequency. Right. However, the Mac keyboards, or sorry, the iPad keyboards, those do have like Control, Option, Command sort of keys, the modifiers, right?
The official iPad keyboard. Oh, here, wait. I can actually do a visual demo because I believe Logitech's is identical to what Apple has, but there's no. It's like a Chromebook where the function row is just special keys. So I have a brightness, I have a search button, I have keyboard brightness, I have media controls and volume. So there's no function row, it's just the action buttons. Again, like a Chromebook. It's gonna unblur. Oh dear.
Maybe it won't.
I'll turn off the Jitsi blur for 1 second.
No, don't worry about it. I'm just gonna pull up the iPad keyboard page on Apple. Dude, I don't think it's gonna work. Probably because it's too close. Okay, don't worry about it.
I turned it off. Oh wait, I did it. Okay, I'm sorry. There you go.
Oh, it's.
So yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. There it kind of is. All right, so yeah, that replaces the function keys in the less useful way.
Right.
Okay, now I'm switching over.
Can't, like these are just the settings also.
Okay.
Or rather, like you can't change these.
So looking at the Magic Keyboard Folio, which is basically the match to what you have, but coming straight from Apple. It has it has that same row. I don't know if it's a new one, but I think it must be compatible with iPad 10th gen. So it has that.
Oh yes.
It has that same row of operational function keys, and then at the bottom it has Control, Option, and Command as modifiers, plus Shift, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah. That's really.
Don't you have to?
That's really for DaVinci purposes. This actually covers pretty much everything. If I remember correctly, I guess I can look. Oh, I haven't started DaVinci on this computer in a while. Plus, this is the Intel computer. Maybe I should start up DaVinci in the other one. Because it is starting way faster. Starting so much faster. Okay, I'm just going to force kill it on this one.
Yeah. And I know, and again, it is like Mac where there's some keyboard shortcuts that are reserved for the system, but apps can use the rest of them. So I've used a couple apps on iPad OS that use like the command key and stuff. It's very helpful.
Yeah. So. Oh yeah, not even that. Okay, so I see a few things in their menus that use the function keys, but honestly, it's stuff you wouldn't use, or not very often. So yeah, I don't think you'd lose anything with DaVinci. It's very friendly to using the modifier keys, not the function keys. So I don't think that would be a big loss. Now, Hoopy says that iPad keyboard is for the base iPad. The Air and Pro keyboards don't have their control keys. Only the number row and below. Okay, well, it doesn't matter. I mean, for our discussion on this, it doesn't matter. Though, wait a second. Oh yeah, that is the iPad, not the iPad Pro.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so dumb.
The iPad, I haven't seen what the iPad Pro keyboard looks like. I know there's the floating one that has the USB port on it. Oh, the Magic Keyboard, that's what I'm thinking of. What does the Magic Keyboard have?
It's basically the same, but without that top set of control keys.
What on earth? And this is the good keyboard.
Yeah. I don't know.
What's Apple smoking? I don't understand them sometimes.
Honestly, my bet is they're just going to come out with this keyboard, the Magic Keyboard Folio, someday. Like,
I know part of the issue here is that they're losing a big chunk of the top of the keyboard there because it's like the iPad is floating over it. But still.
Yeah.
They could do what I've seen some tablet keyboards do and just extend it past the height of the iPad, so it would add more bulk, but then you'd have another row of keys.
Hoopy says the good quote-unquote $250 keyboard, at least according to Apple's page, assuming I'm looking at the right one, it's $299, not $250. They are awful prices.
It depends on the size.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
This says
I'm looking at. Wait, okay.
What are you looking at? I'm looking at the Magic Keyboard for iPad Pro 11-inch.
Yeah, that says $299.
It's $299. If you go up to the 12.9-inch, it's $349.
Yeah, it gets higher.
Yeah,
I don't think there is a $250 anymore. So that's ridiculous. That's too expensive.
Hoopy says I have the Hover Folio, and there's totally enough space for half-height device keys like Corbin has.
Oh, I'm sure there are. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, one of the big questions, kind of getting back to DaVinci related, one of the big questions everyone popped up with is, why is Apple allowing Blackmagic to come in with this app that is extremely popular, well loved, a video editor that directly competes with Final Cut Pro? And part of me is thinking that that's a really good question. Why would Apple be okay with this? And then it struck me, there are a couple of really good reasons. The first one actually is a very straightforward, logical argument of Apple's biggest concern right now is actually not software sales. It's boosting iPad sales.
Right.
The iPad sales for a few years have been flagging. Like, they're not terrible. They're good, but they're not what they were. They're not selling at these high numbers.
Right. And like, part of that is probably just because, again, like, I think there's a couple of things there. Number one, if you have an iPad that's a few years old, it's still a really good iPad. They support them for forever. The chips are like really good. The second issue is they've like had a tough time justifying the higher end stuff. Like, again, there's not like a thing that like really needs M1 besides the Stage Manager thing that's not done yet. And also, tablet sales in general were way down the past years because everyone realized they need a fucking computer at home to do schoolwork on.
Yep.
Right? We all right? Like, before 2020 hit, for like a solid 10 years there, from like when the iPad really became a thing to 2020, we had this constant like doom and gloom of like, oh, PCs are dying, we're all going to use tablets soon. And then as soon as pandemic hits, every laptop, every Chromebook is out of stock because we're like, wait a minute, I can't type a school paper on an iPad. Or like, I really need Zoom, and like the Zoom app for iPad sucks because of like Apple's permissions model, or like all this other stuff where like you just need a laptop. So tablet sales have been down for a while because it turns out they're not that good for productivity for a couple different reasons. So yeah, I'm sorry I had to get that out.
Yeah.
I just that's just the funniest thing to me because like that was a very long time. Like every industry analysis was like, yeah, PCs are going out. We're all going to use tablets. And then, like as soon as the entire world had to work from home, guess what we're not using?
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I can see where we're getting closer and closer to the point where an iPad is a practical laptop replacement. Maybe someday.
Yeah. With the keyboard and stuff, like, yeah, it's very dependent on what you're like. Again, like I can technically do pretty much everything I need to on my iPad. It's just the screen size that's an issue.
Yeah,
which I expect that's what it is. Like a lot of the other reasons people needed to go out and buy laptops during the pandemic, because like I can type a research paper on an iPad. It's just like I need a keyboard and ideally a bigger screen. At that point, you just need a laptop probably.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I get it. It's logical that well, okay, I don't want to go too far down that road. So let's see, what was I going to say though? Damn it. I got sidetracked. Oh, Final Cut. So obviously Apple wanting to sell more units is going to be a driving force here. A lot of people who have iPads now, if DaVinci is only going to work on an M1 model and above, or M2 model and above, that's going to drive some sales. Is it going to be huge? No. Realistically, there are plenty of people who do video editing, but a lot of them can get away with lower power software. They don't necessarily need to go to DaVinci Resolve. And even the ones who do, they're probably still doing their work on a laptop. They don't necessarily care to try to move this stuff to an iPad. But this will drive sales. Not just because of a pro level video editor, which this will decidedly be kind of like a prosumer minus level video editor, because it is definitely going to be pared down. But the mere fact that this is something that they can show off being on here is good advertising for the iPad. It convinces people who don't even need to do video editing that the iPad is a tool capable of doing almost anything. So this is good marketing. If they don't have Final Cut ready to release, and that's not even the concern I have, I actually have a theory on Final Cut in a second, but if they don't have that ready to release, or if they don't want to release it right now, or have any strategy or plan, the fact is, it's not really gonna... It's only going to help them with sales of the iPad to let DaVinci release this. They don't have to keep Blackmagic from putting software out. They can just let it happen and then deal with it later. So that's part of the logic. The other part is I was trying to think about the future Final Cut and whether or not Apple has a strategy or a plan for this. And it struck me, there's some good, easy explanations. And the biggest one comes down to one of the things that really kind of went south for Apple without actually having happened. So for those that don't know, Final Cut is $300 on the Mac App Store. It has been forever. It's a one-time thing. They've never charged for updates since moving to the App Store in the first place. And it's been updated for years. It's still actively maintained. It's good software. Though it definitely is getting less attention than it used to. And there was a rumor a while back that Apple was looking to switch it to a subscription model. As our recent conversation about Adobe proves, we hate this. That sucks. Nobody likes subscription models. It's terrible. And the internet largely threw a backlash, screaming its head off, its collective head, saying if Apple does this, everyone's going to move away. And I kind of actually think that's true. So I was thinking about it, and it occurred to me there's actually a really good explanation for why Apple is totally chill with DaVinci releasing Blackmagic is releasing DaVinci Resolve to the iPad. If Apple turns around and releases a version of Final Cut for the iPad, how much would they charge for it? They could charge $50 or $100. They could theoretically even charge $300. They could make it so if you buy it on the Mac, you also get it on the iPad for free. They could release just a straight up free version of Final Cut and keep charging for it on the Mac. Or, and here's my new theory, I think they're just going to make Final Cut free across the board, iPad and Mac version. The reasons for this might sound crazy, but one, it is fantastic selling position for the Mac. Here's professional grade software you get for free. This is something Apple's been doing for years. It's part of their big pitch. and people would like it. Another thing is, people of course would ask the question, how's Apple making money on this? And my answer to that is iCloud. All they have to do is pitch the notion that a feature of iCloud, a new feature that they could add to iCloud, is collaborative support, or basically continuity. You start editing your video on an iPad, and then you go straight to your Mac, start using it there. All with a simple iCloud subscription. You get easy, free-flowing everything. But the software is free. So this is just a way for them to get their subscription service, which Apple famously has the worst time trying to sell iCloud to people. Like, there are plenty of iPhone users who pay for like base level iCloud, but that's it. They don't. A lot of people hate iCloud or hate paying for iCloud. This is a way to convince a whole bunch of people iCloud is worth it. This is why I think they would actually be totally okay with the idea of letting DaVinci Resolve be on the iPad. Even if it's free, which we don't know yet. But even if it's free, DaVinci in all likelihood is also going to be pitching their subscription service, which is just for video collaboration. You have to go to another method in order to move the actual source video files. You don't get any other features with it. It's just for video collaboration. Apple's pitch, hey, you're just paying for iCloud. You get everything iCloud offers, plus you make Final Cut even better than it already is, and we're now giving it to you for free. I think this is Apple's way of selling the advantages of buying a Mac. It's Apple's way of increasing their iCloud subscriber base, and it makes both the Mac and iPad look even better. So there's my theory. I feel like that is the most logical answer. Plus, honestly, they're not making money on Final Cut anymore. Not really. I mean, they have a team of developers working on it, but you buy it for life. Why? Common sense. Like, if you're already buying it for life, maybe someday they release an update that costs money, but how many people are going to upgrade? A lot of people don't want to do that. At this stage, I think if you wanted to buy Final Cut, you probably already bought it, or you're just coming up and need to buy it, but that's not going to be that many sales anymore. It's not enough to justify a team. So retask that team instead of trying to make money with Final Cut. Turn Final Cut into the thing that makes everything else make money.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that happening because, again, like you said, this is a thing Apple has done for years and years. Like, iWork used to cost money. It used to be a disc you bought along with iLife that had like iMovie and stuff. And then at some point, they're just like, you know what? Everyone gets Keynote and Pages and everything for free because, like, you know, you buy the Mac. Here's your Office suite that's like 90% of what everyone wants. The
same with GarageBand and iMovie.
Yeah.
Both of those used to cost money, and
I had the paid version. I remember begging parents to buy the new version.
Yeah, I mean this is something they've done with almost everything. At this point, the only software I can think of that Apple actually charges for is Logic Pro, which is their audio editing application, Final Cut Pro for video. They technically also have Motion and Compressor, which are things that go with Final Cut Pro. There was one, Soundstage. Oh man, I don't remember now, but it's something similar to Logic, but it's for like live presentation of music.
Yeah. And they had I don't know if this outlasted the iWork and iLife stuff, but QuickTime Pro was a thing for a while.
Oh yeah, that's long dead.
Okay. Oh yeah, I know it's dead. I don't know when exactly it died, but I think that was also paid because it was also on a Windows. So if you had it on Windows, Apple didn't get any money at any point.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
yes, so I could see that happening, or at least some variation of it, where they just pull an Adobe and it's own subscription or something.
yeah.
I could see a lot of possibilities there. The only thing is like it would have, if it was like going free, like you said, it would have to have some kind of like paid perk or something, because it's not like
Yeah, I don't think they want to make it go completely free, like
yeah
everything is free, but I could see it being sort of the Google One model where you're paying for one thing and kind of getting a bunch of other stuff with it.
right.
And that makes it so easy for people to just justify and rationalize it's finally worth it for me to pay this.
Yeah, especially if there's like Adobe's kind of doing this, but they're very slow at it and not good at it. But the the idea of like what we've seen with Google Docs and Microsoft Office, where like you can charge for like a more readily available and collaborative version of a thing.
Yeah.
Like it's very easy to do that, because like I can imagine, like in the same way that when I was, working, when I was at school and I was on a group project and I shared a Google Docs with teammates and they were able to work on it at the same time on all their things, whatever we wanted to. I could see that being very cool for video editing, and we've certainly got enough bandwidth in a lot of the world for like some version of like collaborative video editing, or something like that, where there's multiple people looking at something on a project or quickly transferring between devices. And Apple is, again, like you said, they're not like really good at the cloud stuff, but they're good at the cross device stuff, which feeds into that. So yeah, I could see some version of that happening. It's interesting if they want to merge their like very normal consumer business model with like
Their
more
pro
professional. Yeah, that's really where the confusion lies, because it's like, yeah, Final Cut Pro is like pro, but like what even is pro anymore? Because like there's like a lot of like pretty normal people who are paying for like Illustrator, which, or like also the same kind of like professional kind of app. So I don't know, it's interesting.
Well, I'm also going to float this one. All they have to do is add a few features to Final Cut, and it would basically give them the ability to just completely kill iMovie. Because why support both? Honestly, if you have like a beginner mode and an advanced mode to Final Cut, you completely remove the need for iMovie. And then you've got a whole bunch of developers who can stop supporting it.
That is my biggest complaint going back to the Mac, is they have made iMovie and GarageBand worse.
Yeah.
Over the years, like at a certain, I believe what happened is like at some point they made the iPad versions, and then they dumbed down the Mac versions to be closer to the iPad versions, and it all went it all went south, which is so annoying, because like I remember, I used like, I had Macs in my house growing up, but I would not always be using a Mac. And like one of the reasons I would always go and like ask to borrow my mom's laptop is if I needed to video edit, because there was nothing like iMovie on Windows or Linux. At least that was like as easy to use. And now I look at iMovie and like it's still kind of like what it always was, but they've removed a lot of the features that are still pretty basic and shouldn't have been removed, but they're just gone now. Like I have no use for iMovie right now, because a lot of the video editing stuff I'm doing is like promotional stuff. Like I'm trying to make a YouTube short for Tech Tales, and I can't do that because iMovie is locked to 16:9. There is no other option for aspect ratios. And that's very silly, because like 10 years ago, iMovie could switch between 16:9 and 4:3. And there's no reason why they couldn't keep adding to that list. And GarageBand is the same way, where GarageBand 10 years ago, back when the iPod was kind of new and there was this first initial rush for podcasts, Apple added a ton of podcast editing features in GarageBand. You could, like, everything. It had support for exporting with, like, show art, like what showed in, like, your podcast player while the episode was going. It had support for chapters. It had support for setting a different art for each chapter. I remember it had that, and I remember listening to podcasts at the time that were using that, and it was really cool on my iPod Nano, where it would change, like, I could very easily see which chapter I'm on because they've changed the whole artwork, and it was very cool. And, like, all that's gone now. Like, I gave GarageBand a serious try for TechTales editing, and it was really bad.
I'm telling you, dude, try DaVinci.
I'm fine with Audacity now. Now that they've made it M1 and they fixed, like, this weird bug where all of the animation was going at like 3 frames per second, it's fine now. But again, like, I was just annoyed because, like, I remember GarageBand really being really good at that stuff, and it's not anymore, and iMovie's worse. So that is an interesting, like, weird thing that happened with some of Apple's software.
Yeah, a few of them honestly transitioned out of being that useful, so they tried to kind of pivot them into something else, and in doing so, basically ruined them. That being said, there's at least still usefulness, I think, for GarageBand. I'm less convinced that there's use for iMovie.
Yeah, GarageBand is definitely, like, it's mostly for music stuff, and as far as I can tell, it's, like, fine for that. I'm not a music person, so I can't speak to that, but it seems to still be filling that role. The podcasting thing was just always, like, an extra that they had at some point, and then decided they didn't want anymore. iMovie, yeah, there's so many video editors now.
Yeah, it just isn't serving a purpose, and if they're already supporting a Final Cut, it just doesn't make sense to keep iMovie going. Final Cut's just so much more functional, so much better, so much more flexible, and all they really have to do is just add guardrails to it, and it would be a perfect iMovie replacement. You could still have all the same features, but just in kind of like a light mode.
Right. Yeah, and, like, there's definitely still a case for it to, I don't want to say, like, exist as a professional tool, because, like, it's obviously been so helpful for Apple the past couple years. Because, like, for, like, that was kind of like their it was like Nintendo with the Wii, where Nintendo kept fucking up dramatically, but because they still had the Wii, they were, like, making buttloads of money, or, like, being able to bring so many people on, because it's like how many YouTubers have we heard where they're like, I'm only going to use a Mac because I really need Final Cut. Mm-hmm. And then when the M1 came out, that was very clearly the killer app, because right out of the gate, they did the Apple thing of, we have this fully integrated for M1. It's M1 native. It's using all the special cores, so the rendering is, like, insanely fast. So, like, it definitely, like, it needs to continue existing, and, like, it's like fine if it stays where it's at, because, like, obviously it's still working very well for them, but I do see the argument of, like, they could just full on compete with everyone else in this department instead of staying still.
Yeah, and they could compete on a business level, as opposed to competing necessarily on features and functionality and performance, because very notably, like you just brought up, how fast Final Cut was when they launched the M1. I also remember one of the things they even hyped with the M1 announcement, they showed DaVinci Resolve in their keynote. They didn't talk about it being DaVinci, but they showed it, and people who know DaVinci Resolve recognized it right away. Right. And I even remember when I saw it, during the keynote, and I think I was talking in the AP chat room, and it's like, they just showed DaVinci Resolve running on on a MacBook Air. I kind of don't believe this, but Yeah. Anyway, so the thing about it is, people ran benchmarks against it in like the first week or whatever, and DaVinci Resolve was close but not quite beating Final Cut. Final Cut was definitely better. And then Blackmagic released an update to it like a week later, and DaVinci Resolve started beating Final Cut in almost all scenarios. There was a couple specific things that it didn't do as fast, like if you added certain types of effects to videos, those would go slower. But in all other ways, it was barely beating out Final Cut. And then, like a month or 2 months later, they released another update, and it's like, we now offer full M1 support. And it ended up like, I think render times were something like 80% of what Final Cut render times were. And everyone's like, wait a second. So they're beating Apple with Apple's own software on Apple's hardware. That's nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of, that also shows how much DaVinci's development process has moved. And in all honesty, at this stage, I know this sounds crazy, but frankly, I think Apple's smarter move is just abandon Final Cut and buy Blackmagic. Like, if they're going to do anything, just buy Blackmagic, take over DaVinci Resolve, which this is insane in a number of ways, I know, but take over DaVinci Resolve, and then, and I know that you will like this part, take all of Blackmagic's actual cameras, keep going with the camera stuff, but make them Apple products and put iOS on them, so you could run apps. And then we can finally have the cameras we actually effing want. Cameras that run a smartphone OS so that we can run apps. Yeah, I know, it's one more Apple product, and it would cost too much, and it would have the stupid Mac App Store limitations that we are constantly furious about, and it would have limitations that don't need to exist. But damn it, we would be able to upload all of our stuff to a real sharing, or to a real file storage service, instead of having to move things manually. I'm just saying, give me that. They might also be cellular enabled cameras, because actually, no, what am I saying? They won't even put cellular into a MacBook, so they won't put it in a camera, but the idea is there.
Yeah. The video editing argument is also so interesting to me, because like, obviously video editing has been it's a thing that like most people don't do, but it's always been a like somewhat important selling point for Apple, because like for the past 20 years their whole identity has been like, we're the better platform for creating stuff.
Yep, we're for creatives.
And like, yeah, like iMovie has been in all their ads for God knows how long. But like, it's so interesting that like now I get the impression that it matters more just because of the way people consume reviews. Like now, you know, I think now with tech reviews, a lot of people go to YouTube first, right? And what do the YouTube people want to do on their new shiny laptop? They want to do their job, which is video editing. So it is very interesting to me that like every time there's a new, because like I was obviously looking at a lot of reviews for MacBooks and stuff. When I was going to buy one, I was looking at them for the Mac Mini and the Mac Studio, and like all of them prominently have video rendering times, like all these video reviews, because that's their job. Like that's what I it's not weird at all that they include that. Just like if I'm reviewing a phone, I'm reviewing what it's like to like use Twitter on it, because like that's what I do on my thing. So I do wonder if that's like kind of shifting the value argument in Apple, because a lot of the reason tech reviewers are gushing over Apple is because of how incredible M1 and M2 is for like photo editing and video editing. But that's not what most people do on their computers. They're using like Chrome and like other pretty basic productivity stuff. So I do wonder if like this is more important than ever, just because it affects the value judgment of people trying this hardware. I don't know. Maybe that's always been a thing, but it's shifted a little bit.
So I feel like I feel like sometimes I feel weird because I think I'm probably talking too much about video editing being too important. And then there are other times that I hear other people say that it's important but not that important. And I in the back of my head it's like, man, there's so damn many people who do video editing for one reason or another.
Yeah.
And I know that this is kind of pulling from different sources and different questionable things, but if you look at poll numbers or surveys, various statistics, well, I'll pull up this one. CBS News did an article back in 2019, supposedly, and I think this is probably on the ridiculous made up high end, but it claims 86% of young Americans want to become social media influencers. I think on a more realistic level, there are others where they come up with like a quarter of people want to be social media influencers.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of children.
Yeah, it's a whole hell of a lot of people. And definition of social media influencer can vary. I'm not. It is definitely not all people who are going to post video. There are people who just want to post tweets and be influencers that way. There are people who want to edit photos and just post that. There are different kinds of influencers. I'm not asserting otherwise. However, between people who are vloggers, people who are tech reviewers or various kinds of reviewers, Hoopy says Cody is a social media influencer. On the very thinnest, most ridiculous level, technically, kind of. Not very good at it, apparently, but it counts, I guess. There are people on Twitch who, yeah, they spend most of their time live streaming, but a lot of them, at some point or another, do pull their videos so that they can cut together edits.
Yeah. Or they pay someone to do that.
Yeah. There are so many people who need video editing for one reason or another. Is it 50% of people? Hell no. Not even close. But is it some fairly substantial portion? Yeah. Oh, we have to also add, literally every skateboarder on the planet, at some point or another, is either filming themselves or filming somebody else, and they're all editing. It's ridiculous. Like, so many YouTubers are actually former skateboarders who, like, that's how they got started. It's actually a big joke among a bunch of skateboarders I know that literally all of them are really good with editing software. Half of them are terrible at filming, but that's a whole separate subject. But honestly, like, it is, I think, really significant, and it is mounting, or has mounted. I don't know, but the numbers are up. And I remember 10 years ago, when was it? It was about 10 years ago, maybe a little more. I was doing the Microsoft Windows 8 launch partner thing. And one of the things that they said during this this sort of, like, I guess you could call it a training session, they're basically telling us, like, here's what we want apps to look like and be like for launch partners. And one of the things they said flat out is everything should have photos. Your apps should have photos everywhere. This is what makes them look interesting. This is what makes apps beautiful. Find ways to fit in photos. Yes, good old Metro. I miss Metro. It like, good proper Metro is gorgeous. And it actually was smooth. But anyway. Yeah, that's the thing. They were pushing for photos to be in as many places as possible. Every interface should have photos to it. And that was true 10 years ago. Today, it's video. You should have animation. You have motion. Everything is supposed to have some sort of motion. Let's be honest, video matters. Like,
Yeah, that's a valid point, because like I know there's been a lot of like people smarter than me pointing out that like the rise in availability of really good video recording on smartphones is like changing all this, and like obviously we're getting more platforms that are like almost entirely video, nothing else.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of weird, 10 years ago when we're like, oh, Instagram, like you can't post words, only pictures. That's kind of weird.
Yeah. Now you can barely post pictures. You're supposed to only post video.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously, like for a long time when people talked about video services, it was pretty much YouTube and Vimeo. And obviously there were the others that did like low quality garbage video, plus the porn sites. But, progressively TikTok and Snap really focused on video. And then now Instagram their algorithm basically sort of shoves photos out of the way in favor of video. And Facebook, there's, I don't know how many reports that keep repeating that Facebook is basically shoving video in people's faces as much as possible because that's what they want to feature. So right. Yeah, everybody is featuring video, and if you want to be a quote unquote influencer, or if you want something to perform well, you put it to video. You don't put it to photo. I mean, you definitely get photos too, obviously. You can post that, but you're going to get much more engagement out of video.
Yeah.
Yahoo Screen. Yeah, I honestly have never heard of Yahoo Screen.
Yeah, which I guess makes this Apple thing all more interesting, because like, I don't know, it's interesting that there's a greater push for like better video editing. I don't know the way to describe that, but like it's a slightly different use case, because like the reason I haven't really used a lot of like the professional video editing stuff is like that's not what I need. I need something it's a different use case, because like when I made a YouTube short for Tag Tales the other day, and the first thing I tried was Microsoft Clipchamp, which is their like video editing thing that they bought, that's a web app, and they have some better features if you pay for Microsoft 365, which I have. So I was like, okay, I'll try this. And it's like perfect for that, because it is mainly intended just for like, you get some photos and images, you put some text on top, and you put some music in the background. That's it, you're done. And like in all the marketing materials, it's kind of interesting. They advertise this as like a marketing thing. Like this is a thing you use for like, if you want to, like all their templates and examples and stuff are like, here's a thing that's on sale. Or like they have another template that's like the kind of, I don't know how to describe this, but like the video versions of articles that were everywhere on like Twitter like 2 or 3 years ago, or like Facebook, where there's like a big headline that scrolls by and then they show like a sentence at a time for a couple pages, that kind of thing. So it's like stuff like that that's like a different use case than like an actual video editor, and it seems like those are kind of becoming split a little bit, and Apple's falling more into like the actual video editor camp. And I just need a thing to promote my podcast quickly, which that short didn't go viral, so I feel cheated, but I tried my best.
So as a side note, Yahoo Screen, basically the only thing of importance it ever did is it gave the additional season to Community. Yeah. So that happened. Good for them, I guess. They added a season no one asked for. But yeah, I still think you would actually probably be pretty happy with DaVinci once you got over the relatively small learning curve. Well, small for what you would do with it. But yeah, there's just so many reasons why people are editing video now. It just makes a lot of sense, and it is good for Apple to be associated as the maker of hardware that is popular for this. Whether it's an iPad, a MacBook, maybe eventually an iPhone, it doesn't matter. If they can become the company that is, even if they're not selling the software to do it, as long as they're the company that makes the hardware and everyone associates it, that's a winning strategy for them. And they can try to recover the software ground later.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that all this stuff is fluctuating so quickly, but I also keep seeing a lot of things where it's like, yeah, video is popular because the experience of reading has just gone completely fucking downhill.
There is a lot of truth in that, yeah.
So, which is frustrating as someone who
writes
is fine with writing. I don't really like editing video. That's just the thing that like I force myself to do sometimes.
Yeah.
But, or more specifically, I don't like editing myself on camera. This is fine because I don't ever look at this again.
Yeah. Oh no, believe me, I genuinely think that there is a lot to be said about that, because it is so much easier to speak towards a camera as long as you can just kind of put it behind you. Just like I know that it's a little bit different, but I've never you're gonna want to slap me. I've never listened to a Tech Tales podcast.
Wow.
I did listen to the bloopers reel, which, fun fact, turned out it was basically like 70% me, but
because you're in 70% of the episodes.
Yeah, pretty much. But
it's the problem of your own making.
Yeah. But yeah, aside from that, I've never listened to any of the Tech Tales episodes, and I'm not against listening to them, and I'll probably listen to some. I just haven't gotten to them. I've got a backlog of other stuff. But I'll never listen to the ones that I was on, because one, it's weird, and especially because I will listen to myself and go, oh my god, I said that? What was wrong with me? Did I drink and not remember this? And then also because obviously I was there, so I remember the conversations. I don't really need to hear them again. But yeah, there's an extent to where I want to say things and then put it behind me and move on. So that is definitely a struggle I think a lot of people have when it comes to making YouTube videos or TikToks, anything like that. It is a thing you have to kind of get over. That being said, it's like any muscle. If you just work at it for a little bit, you get over it quickly, and then it becomes second nature.
I'm okay with not doing that. This is as far as I will go.
Damn you almost got me to do a spit take on that.
I don't have to edit this, so it's fine.
Diablo asked what happened to LumaFusion on Chromebook. First off, LumaFusion was the thing we know is going to happen is it's going to hit Samsung tablets, but as far as I'm aware, it still hasn't. Which, wasn't that supposed to have happened by now?
I don't know. I barely know what LumaFusion is.
It's another video editor, but for mobile. It's a very mobile focused video editor. I would compare it more to like old iMovie, but a little more advanced.
Their website still says development of LumaFusion on Android and Chrome OS is underway.
Yeah,
and
and they did say that Chrome OS was coming, but they never attached anything like a promise of what hardware or date or anything like that. They just acknowledged it's happening. They did make a very clear promise with the last Samsung tablet announcement, the last big tablet at least, that it was supposed to be coming,
Yeah.
and the implication was it was coming relatively soon.
That was a while ago.
Yeah, that's...
That was, I think that might have been in February because I believe the newest tablets came out at the same time as the S22. Tab S8. When was this released?
Yep, February.
February. I'm a genius. Diablo said Google Photos video editing needs to take front and center. I literally wrote that at the Android Police. I was like, why the fuck does Google not have a video editor on anything?
I literally gave you the idea to do that.
Yeah, probably. And so
but yeah,
this
this is one of those
Apple
things.
And Google, yeah.
There are, in my opinion, there are 3 companies that make operating systems that anyone cares about in mass: Apple,
Wow.
Google, and Microsoft. I don't think there's any debate about that. If you want user base, those are the 3. And Apple has a good reputation with video. Microsoft had an okay presence with video-ish, kind of, I guess. Google somehow, no. They don't make it. No one else will make it for them. There's just nothing happening there. And it became a big deal when LumaFusion was going to come to an Android device because, oh my god, a thing that happens to be on iOS and is good there and people like is going to come to Android. It wasn't even, I mean, I've heard people say it's not even the best. I've heard others argue it is. It doesn't matter because now DaVinci's coming and that's by far going to be better. But come on. Android and or Chrome OS need to have something. They cannot be this far behind for this long.
Yeah. And like, again, because it's an Android app, they're going to be using the Android container, which I guess is the best option. I don't know.
Your voice went so many octaves higher on that.
I don't know what the status is on the GPU acceleration in that Linux container, but last I checked, it was real hot garbage. Because, shocker, all this container stuff is really hard to do, and also Chromebooks don't really have the hardware for this to start with. And I think can't a web app do some of this by now?
Honestly, yeah.
I have to imagine it. I have to imagine it's gonna run better than an Android app on a Chromebook. Because honestly, Clipchamp on Mac or on anything that isn't Windows is just a PWA. I think the Windows version is just a wrapper, and it's really good. It was fine when I was editing. Again, simple stuff. I'm not doing 8K video, but it was very responsive for what I needed. I couldn't really tell except the fact that it didn't match what my Mac looked like. I couldn't tell that it was a web app. So I don't really know what they're doing there, but I guess they want to double dip because a PWA video editor on Android tablets probably wouldn't be as good. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so funny enough, you bring up web apps. One of the people I follow on YouTube, this guy named Daniel Schiffer, he has been sponsored at least a few times by Canva. And he makes a lot of more commercial-oriented stuff. And so, let's see, where is... So he's filming segments for... Oops. Oh, I already had that open. Yeah, he's filming segments and importing that stuff into Canva, adding various special effects, titles, animations, stuff like that. And this is all done in a web app. 100%, like, he's filming his stuff, but he's doing the editing, or what counts as editing. Special effects, to some extent. It's limited to special effects, but yeah, he's putting this stuff into a web app and making relatively commercial quality stuff in Canva. So yeah, you at this stage, web apps are better on Chrome OS than any of the things that you can actually install there.
I think that's almost always been the case.
Yeah, it really kind of is, which I think also signifies what's wrong with Chrome OS.
Yeah, and like, like I've been keeping a close eye on the Google calls this Project Fugu, or I think that might actually be Microsoft's name, but it's like primarily Google and Microsoft working on this, which is an effort to basically implement every API that a native app can do in Chrome or Chromium, in like a reasonable way. Like they're not web apps are not going to be able to like access the root file system ever, but like more file stuff, more like Bluetooth and USB stuff. Obviously there's like WebAssembly now, which has helped close the performance gap where not everything needs to be compiled JavaScript. And like we're starting to see, because like obviously it takes time to build stuff with all these APIs, and we're starting to see big professional apps actually use this stuff. So that's part of the reason we have a web version of Photoshop now, is because of WebAssembly and this stuff. There's obviously Google Earth has been on the web for a little while now. Visual Studio Code is a web app. Like it's not all that helpful, because like a lot of the reason people would use Visual Studio Code is because it can interact with like libraries and stuff you have installed on your computer, but you can still edit an entire folder of documents on it. I can use it on the iPad. It's not great on the iPad right now because Apple hasn't added all these APIs, but it's still cool. Like you can do a lot of stuff with web apps and they don't have to be slow and terrible.
Yeah.
Which then kills me when like that's what Chromebooks do as well, but Google's like, hey, don't you want to use Android apps? I'm like, no, I don't. They're all bad on this.
So, and I'd be remiss if I didn't throw in the obvious. We could also still have streaming platforms like a Stadia-based kind of thing to do the really heavy stuff, the advanced stuff that you cannot realistically do with a regular web app. But that didn't happen.
At least in the case of like video editing, like this has been a thing for, I'm pretty sure forever, for as long as any kind of rendering has been around. You let a render farm do everything.
Distributed rendering, yeah.
Yeah. So like, that can be a thing too. Like you can edit a blockbuster movie on your iPad and click a button and it sends everything off to the Mac Pros you've got in the back room at your movie studio.
Yeah. Oh man, it's just baffling to me that more priority hasn't been placed on this. But
that's the thing that like really killed Chromebooks for me, because like I was pretty early on the Chromebook trend and I liked it for a while.
I remember.
And then they just like over time they killed a lot of the like the web stuff has gotten better, like all the new APIs, but Chromebooks as a product, there was a point where they absolutely shifted over to Android first.
Yeah,
I didn't like that. Like I remember at a certain point, like when I got some Chromebooks to review, there was a point where they just put the Play Store in the taskbar by default, and like it would show you how to open it when you're setting up a Chromebook. Is like, here's the because they got rid of the Chrome web store for apps at a certain point, and they didn't have a good way to like showcase that stuff anymore. So at a certain point, they were like, here's where you go for apps. and all of these are Android apps, except like the 3 apps that are actually web apps, and the developers have gone through the work of adding the like checkbox that says just install the PWA if they try to get through here, like Twitter does that. But it's all, it's all Android apps. So
yeah. So
again, I don't get Chromebooks anymore.
Yeah, it is just so bizarre that they have such a large functionality gap, and it seems that is not enough of a high priority to be fixed, which also raises that classic question of why are they making high-spec Chromebooks? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm fully in favor of the idea of it, but they're not making it possible to make good use of those specs, which highlights a pain point in the operating system more than anything.
Yeah, it's very, very weird.
So, let's see. Speaking of Google's what are they thinkings, there's of course the recent report that Google is quote-unquote doubling down on the Pixel, and they're going to presumably kind of pull focus away from other things, including Android Auto, obviously Stadia. The list kind of goes on, but yeah, this is...
Was this the 9 to 5 thing? Where was this?
Yes, this was 9 to 5. Which
I'm looking for it.
I pasted it into chat.
I see. Okay, I see it.
And really quick, I know it's not important, but I feel obligated to call this out. 9 to 5 made a specific point of including the quote from Kirk McMaster, the previous, I guess, CEO of Cyanogen.
Is this Cyanogen guy?
Yeah. This is the guy who promised they were going to put a bullet in Google's head.
What did they quote him on? How to be a clown?
Sadly, no. They took him seriously when he said that Google, quote, can't afford to back off with the Pixel phones.
Oh, the information cited him?
Yeah.
Who the fuck is running that place? Why would you listen to anything that man says?
Exactly.
Oh my god. I thought the information's greatest crime was probably getting that chip security report thing wrong, and also writing articles that are Bibles.
Well, also,
wow.
There are a lot of things the information gets wrong, including hiring Amir Sufridi or so. I honestly cannot remember his name right now, but a terrible writer. Mostly because he just writes fan fiction all day and all night about the conflicts between these companies when all of it is completely made up. Anyway,
yeah, that is the one thing I learned from being really invested in the browser ecosystem, where you have this idea of like, oh, all these people are like fighting against each other and like stealing each other's employees or whatever. It's like, no, dude, like everyone who works at WebKit is like chatting up everyone who works at Chrome in the DMs, who are chatting up the Firefox people. Like they're just people. Like most of them are just like trying to do their jobs and like be nice.
Yeah.
Now middle management you have to look out for.
Yeah.
So some of those product managers you got to look out for.
Believe me, I know. Inadvertently or indirectly, I've had a couple of shakeups with a few of them. Thank you to those years of doing teardowns. But yeah, quoting Kirk McMaster is just the epitome of hey, we don't want to be respected. Thanks for reading. But which again raises the question, why is 9 to 5 even quoting him? But okay. Anyway, and sorry, Carson, did I say auto? I meant automotive. I knew in my head what I was saying, but
that's Google's fault.
It really is, yes. That choice to call it automotive after already having auto was really just not the best. But yeah, so I I get the I get the logic of let's put more force behind the Pixel products. I actually agree with that. I think that's a good choice because one, maybe they'll polish the software a little bit more. Please. Please. But also, just in general, if they're spending so much money on advertising Pixel now, they're putting the effort in to making Pixel a actual competitive product, except with the fingerprint sensor. Guys, what you thinking? But evidently, the team has not grown that substantially in the last few years. I support the idea. Hey, make more Pixel exclusive features. Make more things that really push the Pixel as a product that other companies would look at and go, ooh, that's amazing. We want that. Do that stuff. Yes, absolutely. Fully support that. I'm not against it. I do think it's dumb or a big risk to decide that other projects at the company should be pushed back, that you should limit their potential growth. I mean, not killing. They're certainly not killing Android Automotive, but if it's true that they actually want to reduce the team for Android Automotive and let it sort of just sail in kind of not limbo, but just maintenance mode is what I kind of assume this to be. I think that's a huge mistake.
Well, I think first the Pixel stuff like 100% makes sense. Like this is a thing the whole tech industry or the big tech companies are going in, is they're realizing like the path to success is like ultimate vertical integration. If we can do like all, like Apple has clearly kicked everyone's ass by doing this. So like, yeah, Google should have their own phones that don't have like 2 app stores and 2 calendar apps and everything.
Yeah.
And like that part makes sense. I guess the automotive stuff is kind of interesting because like it seems like no one really knows what direction the car industry is going in. Besides the fact that they're transitioning to EVs, like that's going to keep happening. That's still happening. But like the rest of it is still really cloudy because for the past like 10, 15, 20 years, we've been operating in this mode of like the cars will eventually drive themselves. And then like we need like more complex software and hardware to go with that. And it's like, okay, if we're already doing that, then like it can also stream music from Spotify, whatever. But like that's just not happening. Like no one I think I don't know what Waymo's up to at this point, but they're not doing hot. I think Uber scaled back on their self-driving because like their cars are just running over people at very high speeds.
Yeah. Well, to that point, I think Google is trying to not make news with Waymo, largely because Uber is making news in the bad way. At this stage, Google did this mistake once with Glass. They put out a product, a lot of people in the public got their hands on it, made really bad news by using it in public, and it became a bad mark on Google, or at least Google's specific products. I can see why they would be looking at this and going, you know what, let's just continue development of Waymo, let's get it as far as we can, as quietly as we can, and we'll surprise everyone in a couple of years with a product that we can like throw on the road and it'll just work great. Meanwhile, Uber is over there like, oh crap, we hit someone else this month. Oh well. And Tesla's done the same, and even though Tesla's was kind of a made up fictional situation. But
this was entirely based on Elon Musk overselling how rapid software development works. But
that too. But
it's especially funny for Uber because they've never made money, and the only way they'll ever make money is if they can not pay human drivers at all, and they can't do that either.
True.
It's almost like we should start investing in actual infrastructure instead of letting Uber bleed money for all eternity. But that's fine. That's a different argument.
Yeah.
But I mean, like the Pixel stuff, it makes sense. I get why pulling away from cars, because I hate, as it stands right now, I hate the entire concept of like a smart car in the same way that I hate smart TVs and smart refrigerators, because both of them you're keeping for a very long time and they're never made to be upgradable, and it's all terrible. So
I would love legislation that actually dictates. I mean, I can understand TVs fine, it sucks, but I can understand a case to be made.
Most TVs do not cost $40,000.
Well, and the quantity of waste with a TV, as long as a TV remains usable for, let's call it, minimum 5 years, ideally more like 10. And in reality, if the software on the TV stops being good or updated at, let's say, 5 years, the reality is you can still plug in a separate box and probably still get everything through a port for the next following 5 years. You're good to go. This is not a problem.
Yeah.
Your car is not the same thing. And
yeah, my TV is not dumping CO2 into the air, and it's not at risk of running over people if something breaks.
I mean,
I think. I haven't checked if it's grown wheels.
I was going to say, I don't know. LG's TVs, they weird stuff, man. Weird stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, a TV I can see, go ahead. Let that be a market that it sucks. It shouldn't be this way, but this is a market where I can see allowing this. You can't allow this with cars. Cars have to support at least an upgrade path. Maybe they don't need to be supported by their original maker at a certain point, but if support is going to end, there has to be at least some sort of a model for third parties to continue supporting it, or there has to be a straight upgrade from the original maker, or there has to be something so that those cars can continue to have reasonable support.
Yeah, and it's weird because like we're seeing cars are pretty heavily legislated already, so it's weird there's not like something about that,
but not for maintainability.
A little bit. The physical parts, I believe, have to be at least like a decade after the car.
Okay, yeah, I think you're right on that.
And there's like, obviously all the like EPA says your engine has to be this efficient or whatever, but yeah, like it's so like they're like really heavily legislated already, but again, it's just another case of like government being really slow with, well, not even like really slow with tech advancement, because we're starting to get laws specifically about how EVs work, which are newer than complex entertainment systems in cars. So it's, I don't know, that's fun stuff. I hate cars just in general. I hate my car. And like there's nothing like really all that wrong with my car, except sometimes it makes a funny noise and I try to get it fixed, and it's going to take like a long time to even get an appointment at somewhere that seems good to get that fixed. And I don't enjoy everything about cars, and I certainly don't want my car running Android. Like I don't need it to do that, especially if it's connecting to the internet, and then I have to worry about what monthly patch is my car on. Is there a 0-day vulnerability I need to be worried about? How many 0-day vulnerabilities do I need to worry about?
So
like God forbid if my car is connected to the internet and has the Chromium engine, then I'm just completely fucked.
That's fair. Man, when you glance over at a Nest Hub and get really bad news, air quality right now 152, which is really bad.
Is that? I don't know how that works.
Ideally, 50 is under 50 is considered good. From 50 to 100 is considered not great, but okay. Like, if you have really bad breathing problems, then 50 to 100 will give you sort of irritation.
Cool.
From 100 to 150 is basically your hey, you live in Mexico City during the bad days. Maybe not that bad, but it's considered unhealthy for everybody. And anything over 150, as 152 happens to be mathematically, that's oh dear God, put on a mask. You know, that thing that you were supposed to be doing the last 2 years and didn't do. Now maybe you'll do it. Anyway, thank you, Forest Fires, for doing that. But anyway, look, I agree. I don't want my car running Android, but I do still want the infotainment system to be running natively.
Swap out.
And yes, I want it swappable. Give me a screen that is connected to a computer, and I want to be able to replace that computer.
That is such a downgrade from cars of like 20 years ago, where all of them just had the rail for like chucking in whatever entertainment system you wanted.
Yeah. No, I miss that.
Yeah. Cause I remember my car now, like the display is in like a little like custom thing like most new cars, so I can't do that ever.
Yeah, but I know, believe me, I would love to be able to replace the display entirely, but
yeah.
I will accept.
Yeah, I want an OLED panel in my car.
I will accept just replacing the computer inside.
Yep.
Give me that, and that way I can put something newer, something better, and very importantly, I really desperately want to. I want to be able to hop in my car, and I know that this isn't as big a problem for others, but I want to hop in my car, start it, and I want that thing to be on like that. I do not want boot time. I want this thing to be sitting on a battery, sitting idle, which every smartphone is extremely good at doing this.
Yeah. Where's my car with M2?
I want it to have a sleep mode. I don't want it to be just you turn off the car and you've lost power completely and it has to boot up again. That boot time may not be that bad in my car, but it's enough that it makes me unhappy about it. I want to get rid of that. Yeah. Plus, I want to get rid of the connection time with the phone. I basically don't want to have to connect my phone. This feels like an easy request, and Android Automotive gives me that. So I do want Android Automotive. But I want them to keep working on it.
And this is again the classic smart TV thing, where it's like you can spend a shitload of money on a smart TV. Like you can go ham wild, get the thing from Samsung that looks like a photo frame, whatever. It's all gonna have the same low end hardware in it, which is immensely frustrating for stuff like this. And especially because, again, like you said, you can't do anything about it, and it only gets worse.
Austin points out that Android Automotive is still technically a layer on top of the car's OS. It is notable, at least in most of these cars, that car OS is still actually Android, though. Like, for example, the infotainment system on my Honda, it is running on Android. It's Android 4.3, I think, which was ancient even when that car came out. So this is cringeworthy on many levels. But yeah, I mean,
it's got the Holo car.
If you do the couple of tricks so you can get out to the operating system, it's so cringeable. But I don't want to be stuck on that, and I don't want the hardware that is so slow that's what you kind of expect with it. I want newer hardware. I want software that's new and performs more efficiently and gives you those experiences you kind of expect to have. Diablo, the lowest common denominator has to be improved for sure. Yeah. I mean,
Oh yeah, Austin was talking about the actual car OS, which is like that's always like a real time
yeah,
OS thing that like
but
ideally
running,
the entertainment system should never touch.
Yeah,
That's a big no zone.
yeah, but that's running the hardware fundamentally. I mean, we could obviously argue about the different layers on this thing, but I mean, we're still talking about the OS as far as the shell that's running on top. What OS does it think it's talking to, as far as most of them are concerned, or as far as at least my Honda's concerned? That shell thinks it's talking to Android. It does. It doesn't matter what lower level thing is there.
Yeah, although that is like blurring more.
It is, but
like
Android is never going to be that operating system. It's never going to be the operating system that's determining when you press on your brake, how much does your car brake?
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, if you've got Android running on it, your car is already broken.
Then a lawsuit from Oracle can determine if your car can brake or not.
I want to punch Oracle.
So yeah, I hate cars. I don't want my car to run Android. I'm worried that what my options will be that when I need to swap out my car, because my original plan was just to use I got a Honda Kona 2 years ago. My plan was just to drive it until I run into the ground, but I really don't like going back to gas cars. Makes me sad. I had to do it. Well, I don't even know if I had to do it. I don't regret it. I think it was a good choice, but I do miss EVs. I really miss having exactly zero mechanical things to worry about. As if are the tires good? Okay, great, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Literally the only time I ever had maintenance on my Leaf was I had a hole in the tire, and I think at one point I might have had to get new tires. I'm pretty sure, but that was it.
I mean, that's a pretty big requirement, but
yeah, we haven't got around those yet.
Yeah. Tires, brakes, maybe a couple of other things inside the car that have nothing to do with the actual driving. Oh, Corbin, there you're back. Oh, my bug. Okay. But yeah, this is something that is a fixable, it's stuff that's easily fixable. It's no longer oh my god, my car threw a rod, or a bunch of issues with timing belts and things like that. All of that stuff gets to go away, which is neat.
Yeah, Austin said the Bolt EV is cheap. Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Corbin's rolling in the money, just not that much money.
I mean, I bought 2 Macs, so
yeah, he'll be paying off his Apple debt for a little bit.
The payments on my car don't even end for another year, 2 years, something like that. Because my Leaf was worth nothing, and mostly the Leaf was worth nothing. So yeah, I don't. Maybe after that, I don't know. There's still the wonderful issue where, because our infrastructure is shit in this country, most apartments do not have any way for me to plug in an electric car, which is one of the reasons I got a gas car, because I knew I'd have to be moving at some point. But now the new cars are 250, 300 mile range. So it's getting to the point of the same range as a gas, as my Kona. I think I can drive for 300 miles or something like that without going to fully empty. So if I get an EV right now, once a month, I'll have to go sit at a charging station for 2 hours. I'll just bring my laptop or something. Not that big of a deal. But yeah,
it's
just annoying. I hate cars. I wish I didn't have to buy one.
Which I think does raise one interesting possible counterpoint, which might be a little bit of the reason maybe Google doesn't care as much about automotive, and that is, we kind of know that mass transit is going to pick up someday. Invariably, there will be fewer people getting cars, and they'll just rely on mass transit. Obviously, this is not going to completely make cars go away. Any sane person knows there's too many people living in rural areas where a car is just still a requirement. But there is an argument to be made for cars may become a minority in terms of how people rely on transportation.
Maybe. I could see that happening as like more people move to cities in the US.
Well, and as more places of nominal population start to become more populated in general. So a place that previously just mass transit wasn't realistic eventually becomes realistic.
Yeah.
In other words, small town grows to medium-sized or big town.
Yeah, that'd be nice. But I mean, yeah, I'm sure also part of the reason that automotive might be having problems is like car manufacturers are having a hell of a time. Because well, number one, they were already all pretty bad. That's like GM had to be completely bailed out because America doesn't know how to build cars anymore. Once Japan recovered from World War II, it was all over. We didn't stand a chance. Japan and South Korea, they know how to make cars.
And Germany.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, you gotta include them.
Well, they're really great at cheating emissions too. I know that.
Yeah. Germany, not good with tests.
No. And so all of them are having issues right now because of the chip shortage and because it's still not really clear where the workforce is going to end up because of the work from home now that we're kind of firmly entrenched in. There's like still this shift of like companies really trying to push people back and people like, no, I think I'm good. I don't want to, drive to work every single day. And if you don't need to do that, then you're not putting as many miles on your car, so you probably don't need to buy a new one quite as quickly.
Yeah, the turnover on cars is definitely coming down. Though, to be fair, in some cases, people are driving them so much less that it's actually bad for the car. And
yeah, I know that's like an issue with, I remember that being an issue with the Volt, or like some of these hybrids, where it's like you have to actually remember to use the oil in your tank or the gas in your tank instead of using the battery all the time.
So and the work from home factor definitely kicks in. It's reducing some reliance on cars, though I don't think it's changing it entirely, but it is giving the possibility for somebody who can get to groceries and all the things that they need by, let's say, a bike or mass transit.
Where's Android Bike?
That would actually probably do well. But yeah, if you can already do that stuff, maybe, and work from home allows you to not actually go to the office with any frequency. This does it, like typically work commutes are the biggest reason some people need cars, and they wouldn't necessarily need a car if they didn't have to commute. That is a valid thing, and it is definitely it has increased a lot over the last 2 years for all the obvious reasons.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess the Google report is kind of interesting. I can't believe the information wanted to talk to Kirk. That's incredible. I can't wait until the Cyanogen has been in my Tech Tales list almost since day one. I'll get to it eventually. Yeah.
Oh man. And
I just know that's gonna be one of those things where like so much happened with that dude and others that isn't like widely known because after the company collapsed, no one cared anymore. But
but he
it's
just kept talking. He kept
yeah.
trying to talk. He said so many
What's
dumb things.
what's so funny about this quote is like anyone who remotely pays attention to this would have said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like
Yeah, there's
no
nothing...
shit. Yeah, like no shit. Google shouldn't stop making its own hardware for its own operating system, Kirk. Why isn't the information coming to me to ask very basic questions? They're like, Corbin, do you think babies should drink milk? Do you think that's a good idea, Corbin? Be like, yeah, I think so. Oh, so insightful. Thank you, Corbin.
Kirk McMaster's is actually just an alter ego or alias for Captain Obvious.
Yeah.
So, he's oh god, he is really, yeah. He is one of tech's best unlikables.
Yeah, again, there's a whole category of like really sometimes they know what they're talking about, but like not good people that news organizations keep asking for their opinion on. So we should stop giving opinions on everything. Like almost everyone who writes an opinion piece for the New York Times, like those kinds of people will always get dragged out for comments on like news, or they get strung up in front of like CNN for a little while to talk about something, and we need to stop that. We need to put an end to that.
Corbin, you and I both know that Kirk McMaster is now that guy that we receive emails about that say
yes
yeah.
They're like, the CEO's available for comment about this news. Yeah. Oh my god, I get so many of those now.
Oh yeah, they're terrible. Oh,
they're always like, Facebook is making a metaverse. Do you want to talk to the CEO of a game that no one plays for comment? He has some pretty smart things to say. I'm like, nope, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'll let you know if I ever care about what a CEO thinks about anything. I'll let you know. You'll be the first to know.
Yeah, this is admittedly very inside baseball, but oh man, if anyone listening ever does anything that's news coverage related, oh man, you will start getting emails, at least one a day, someone doing a whole pitch of the pitch email is always even the same format. It's always some statistic or something about a recent news event, then a paragraph about how it's changing the future and oh my god, it's so great or so terrible, or it's affecting all these people in such horrible ways. And then the third paragraph is always such and such who does blank wrote a book or is available to speak on this. If you'd like to set up an interview or whatever. And it's like, no. And the thing they're also like, and the thing they're CEO of is never anything you've heard of.
Right. It's like I barely ever get that email from a company I've heard of before. Like, that almost never happens. It's always And like also just the entire idea of a meeting about this. First of all, I have like crippling social anxiety, so I don't even like doing like actual video calls. I really don't like doing meetings with. I can count the number of like one-on-one calls with someone that's like work related, not outside of like company calls. Like if I'm like talking to someone at another company for work, that's happened like 4 times because I really avoid doing it. I don't like doing that. I would never do that. Like some rando CEO, mostly because I think I would just like, I couldn't resist bullying them. I'd be like, so where'd your venture capitalist money come from, buddy? Was that family members, or is that like, is Peter Thiel setting you up? Like who's doing this? Who's responsible for you sending me an email about how Bitcoin's going to change the world? Oh my God, Cody, that was the funniest thing. I got an email
Oh yeah.
like 2 days ago. There's about how Bitcoin is like going to change the world. I'm like, are you guys still going with this? Are you still trying to make this happen? I
They
need this. I
absolutely
need.
are.
It's so, and like I really wanted to. Okay, so I'm gonna read this email because it's really funny.
Okay, really quick, I want to say they are objectively right. Bitcoin is going to change the world. It will absolutely bring about the heat death of this planet at least a year earlier.
Yeah. I did actually. I made fun of this on Twitter a couple weeks ago because I got one that was another one where they're like, "Do you want to talk about how Bitcoin is improving renewable energy?"
Nope.
Because, yeah, it's like, no, I don't. First of all, second of all, go fuck yourself. Third of all, it's not doing that. Like, there are a lot of documented cases where, like, this happened in China, I believe, last year, where China had to be like, turn off your fucking coal plant
Yeah.
because this is only being used to power a crypto farm. That's it. That's like, no, terrible. But I did get an email. This says, "Hi Corbin, would you like to speak to Mr. Clown about how hyper Bitcoinization is the imminent next step in crypto? Clown is well known for his work with El Salvador's Bitcoin initiatives and his efforts in nation-state Bitcoin adoption around the world. Rough estimates indicate there are nearly, there's a link there. What website does that go to? Oh, local news, great. Indicates that there are nearly 100 million Bitcoin users and almost 400,000 Bitcoin held by public and private companies. If these numbers continue on their current trajectory, hyper Bitcoinization is almost a surety. If is doing so much work there." And he says, "This clown's expertise spans from running one of the largest exchange and mining pools when he was the COO of some company I've never heard of, to guiding the development and deployment of Bitcoin infrastructure as the CSO of another company I've never heard of. Mr. Clown can provide helpful, insightful comments on," and then they list like the fun thing that all these emails do, where they're like, "Here's some questions you can ask that we already have pre-prepared answers for." And it's like, how the increase in inflation is perhaps the main reason that will fast forward this path to hyper Bitcoinization, which is very funny because there's like two words there. There's perhaps. Is perhaps the main reason why this thing will happen, that's always funny. It's like, how it's not, they don't explain it. They don't, because they don't have a reason for that. There's no reason for this to happen. Like,
Yeah.
if like, right, because like inflation is about like the value of money. What has the value of Bitcoin done overall in the past 12 months? It's not, it's doing much worse. And how the introduction of digital currencies is a negative factor that could lead to blah 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 blah. And also, this stuff is honestly like Republican like legislation where it's like there's no like consistent ideology here except just being complete nonsense. Because they also say one of the things Mr. Khan can talk about is how massive support from governments and regulatory bodies is required in the upcoming process. So again, the whole point of this is so it's decentralized, but we need inflation to happen so it takes off, and also governments need to heavily invest in this stuff. It's like, okay. All right, buddy. All right, Mr. Clown.
Yeah. It's nice that they make believe, but holy crap, are they awful.
And I got that 2 days ago. And it's like like I can almost understand, like at least at the beginning of this year with like the flash in the pan of NFTs or whatever, it's like I guess you could maybe make the argument that this stuff like still has a future or whatever. It's like Bitcoin has been like consistently going down for at least the past 6 months. It might be longer. I haven't paid attention. And like NFT interest went down to almost zero. I don't. like I really what I really want to ask the CEO is like, how are you employed? Where where is the money for your food and rent coming from? I really want to know this because it's like it's sure as shit not coming from Bitcoin. So like who is paying you to send me these emails about how Bitcoin is going to take off? What are you, do you still have venture capital money from like 2 years ago? Is El Salvador giving you money? I really want to know.
My guess in half of these cases is that they just own a good chunk of it and realize that the value is crashing. So they're trying to pump right before they can dump.
I guess I don't know. It's always so weird to me with this stuff, and I keep running into it of like, how do you live? Because like it's already hard for me to live, and I provide a service to society, generally speaking. But it's like you're doing literally nothing. I'm just real. Do you live with your parents? That's what I also want to ask that.
Well, I was just gonna say their venture capitalist is the partnership of DADDY. Like this is how they're surviving, and they're just hoping to get that lucky moment where they can sell everything and move out.
Oh man, I just clicked his Twitter profile. I'm gonna close this. This is making me annoyed. But yeah, like just the emails like that are always funny. And I haven't seen a lot of these because I thought I had a filter on. I have a literal filter on my work email. I've had this for like a year now, where if an email says Bitcoin or crypto, it goes straight in the trash. So if Samsung ever emails me to tell me that they're like burning Bitcoin, I'll miss it.
That you will.
But I'm okay. That's a sacrifice I'm willing to do. Speaking of sacrifices, it is almost 9:30 here. I'm hungry, and most stuff is going to start closing soon, so I need to get food.
Yeah, I figured you were going to say that, which sort of sucks because I had one last topic, but yeah, you can leave if you insist.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Which doubly sucks because I really didn't read this. I don't care enough, but anyway.
I can send you more funny Bitcoin pitch emails.
I'd rather you not.
You don't get enough of those, Cody?
I've done a good job of not attracting them in the first place. I still get a few, but yeah, I mostly don't get too many of those. But it doesn't change that Kirk McMaster is still absolutely the type of person who is now paying a PR person just to put his name in front of people.
I feel like he's got to be a crypto guy. I don't know what he's up to. He's got to be into. He's doing something.
I genuinely cannot picture him not being one. Like
this is
not even a joke. I genuinely cannot imagine him not being into crypto.
I need to see it. Is he on LinkedIn?
I'm sure he's on Twitter.
I don't see him. Yeah, I need to find him. I need to know what he's up to.
That is the last thing I ever need to find out. Though when you do, share it to the
yeah. Okay, I found his website. Oh no, his website's dead. Oh, poor guy.
Oh my god, this guy is clown bait. He's so clown. Oh god.
You know what's on his Crunchbase profile? Is before he was at Cyanogen. Can you guess what company he was founder and managing director USA of?
Okay, my initial instinct is just to say Barnum and Bailey's knockoff circus, but I have a feeling you're going to tell me that's not right.
It's like Enron or something. No, it was Boost Mobile.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I actually knew that. Yeah, which is so fitting because Boost.
Oh my god! And now he's at something called Bond Mobility, of which he is the founder of. And according to Crunchbase, he's got $22 million in funding. Who is giving this man money? This is what I get so upset about. is like I have to really budget to make sure I have enough food. I'm sorry, enough money for food. Sometimes, and there's people just giving this guy blank checks when he's a complete jackass. This is what I get mad about. I get mad about this.
And almost every, well, yeah, basically every business he has started, every business that he claims to be a founder of, has failed.
This is incredible.
Cyanogen was the closest to a success, and it was a definite failure. His association with
directly
Boost Mobile,
because of him. Yeah.
He was hired into that. It's not like he founded Boost.
Right. This is like a Elon Musk PayPal situation. Like, no, we didn't really found him. We just was in there kind of early and bought someone.
Yeah.
Who keeps giving this man money? I'm Hold on. Actually, Crunchbase can tell me that. That's why I love this website. This and LinkedIn are the only ways I can get firm information about half of these tech companies.
Yeah, but
when they want to be all
about stuff.
Yeah, the LinkedIn is it can also be fishy sometimes. Financials, two investors, a company called Ben. Okay, I've never heard of these companies. Okay. Some investment firm in Turkey and another investment firm in Japan. No, an automotive company in Japan. Okay. So, all right. Well, see, this is what I should do. I just need to go to venture capitalist companies and say, look, I don't need, $20 million. I'll take $1 million.
And to think, this guy actually managed to convince Microsoft to funnel money into Cyanogen.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
I mean, Microsoft has blown money on a lot of stupid things, but Cyanogen was a profound waste of time, effort, money. I mean, back when it was a public works project, it was a pretty good thing. Once they tried turning it into a company, it's amazing how quickly that thing went downhill.
And it all went downhill because of dumbass people like it.
Yeah.
I remember, I think this was around the time I was hired at Android Police. So I was paying attention to this, but there was a while where they had partnerships with OnePlus lined up and other companies, and they were doing really well. And then this guy opened his mouth and also pissed off OnePlus. It's incredible.
Yeah. There are some people, it's amazing that they don't get run out. I mean, Andy Rubin was successfully run out, though I honestly do not believe that we have not. I think we're going to hear him again.
There's a comeback tour coming. He's gonna do the YouTube apology video where he's crying, and then he's going to become a crypto influencer, or he's going to go find a startup and pretend he founded it. One of those two, or both. It could be both.
Oh, he's got the vanity. I think he'll actually insist on starting it.
Because there's so many tech venture capital people that just straight up have no soul. They'd be fine with giving him money. Honestly, he could probably go to Peter. And I would keep bringing up Peter too. But it's perfect example. Oh my god, the amount of money Peter Thiel has spent on dumbasses like this is incredible. It almost makes me. It doesn't make me feel bad for him. I like that he's been scammed out of so much money. The number of libertarian boats on the sea that want to act as countries he spent money on is incredible.
Yeah.
And also, he's my favorite thing to point to whenever someone's like, but Brave cares about your privacy and security. It's this guy doesn't care about any of those things.
Nope. Nope. In fact, pretty famous for paying to make sure that some people didn't have privacy or security.
Yeah. I'm sure Andy's got to make a comeback one of these days, or he'll get hired at some. You know what? Cody, if you were a betting man, I don't know if you are, but if you were, how much would you put on Andy Rubin getting a job at Meta? I'd put at least.
Are we
$10.
talking a new product, or are we talking just getting hired at Meta to be some C-level executive?
Let's say new product. I don't think he would do something like this if he wasn't at least trying, like, pretending to start something.
I think his whole shtick is he needs to be seen as a visionary, and he will not accept anything that does not involve that. So odds, actually, I think pretty good. I could absolutely see Meta being very, very keen on bringing him in because he just seems like that kind of a guy.
There's a subset of tech companies that are like almost cool enough to want to work there, but also just like no soul. It's like Meta. You go work at Oracle. Oracle's still run by,
but Oracle's
not cool. I know.
Yeah.
He needs to be cool.
Oh God! No! Oh my God! I know. After Elon Musk buys Twitter, right, Elon Musk hires Andy Rubin to run Twitter's next whatever. Who cares what? I'm just saying these two together. It would be a perfect match. The match made in hell.
Yeah, it would be a perfect match because both of them can't keep their hands off of female executives at their companies, so it's perfect.
Yeah,
it's great.
And it is ostensibly consensual-ish. But yeah, no, those two together, that just fits. They talk a lot. They make a lot of trouble.
Right. I think I could see that.
Andy Rubin's a lot more private than Elon Musk, so I will give him that. But
yeah. But like, I think that's probably how Musk likes it. He doesn't want to be over.
Right.
Doesn't want to be in someone else's shadow.
Yeah, Musk prefers. Oh, actually, that makes them even more of a perfect pair because Musk would want someone who does want to kind of stay in the background, except for the occasions where he can kind of trot him out as the show horse. And Rubin wants to be seen as a visionary, but he doesn't want all the attention all the time. And he wants to work with somebody who is sleazy and is down for the sleaze and won't get in his way when the sleaze comes out.
What is Andy Rubin doing? I'm curious. I'm gonna look at his crunch. Diablo's like, Corbin, got a bit of food to ramble. I know, I'm gonna leave after this, I promise. No, there's nothing on his activity. He must still be laying low, pretending, not drawing attention to himself.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the smart move. I'm not sure he does the smart thing.
Didn't he have a Twitter, I think?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he shut it down or deleted it or something. Because he also never tweeted, remember? If I remember correctly, he only tweeted like once every couple of years or something.
Yeah, he's like the Sundar kind of Twitter, like it's just there.
Oh, even less than that. But yeah, it was really infrequent.
Oh yeah, I found a Business Insider article. It's titled "Android founder Andy Rubin has blocked almost everyone following him on Twitter." Oh yeah.
And think about how many people you actually have to block. Like,
okay, he does. He's on Twitter. His profile is locked, and it's got 0 following and 0 followers. So he's still in the hibernation mode. He'll come out to terrorize the tech space again one day.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Oh, that guy.
Again, I'm amazed at who gets all the money. I haven't sexually assaulted anyone. Where's my VC money? What's the deal with that? Cody, we need to start a crypto scam. Okay, this is the only way I'll be able to save for retirement.
Does it actually have to
Okay.
be a crypto scam? Can't we just make something and say blockchain several times?
I don't. The stakes might be higher for that now. I think if we did
You're
that
right.
4 months ago, maybe, but I think we might have to go higher.
We should probably at least mention Bitcoin and Ethereum in separate
Right.
sentences.
Yeah,
I think that is a necessity.
yeah. I think we can do it. I think yeah. And this is. Oh, my dog got her squeaky toy. Yeah, I think we can do that. I'll think on it. I'll get back to you.
Austin suggested that Andy Rubin could go into the robotic sex industry. I gotta say, that is not something I would imagine. Not because I think it's implausible. Just I really don't want to actually imagine it. I don't want that thought in my head because I dread the picture that could come with it.
No, that'd be horrible.
And if nothing else, I'm actually picturing robots filing charges against him.
Yeah.
Because even robots can be abused.
Yeah.
Um
I'm gonna leave now.
yeah, okay. Go. I will talk
Okay.
about Microsoft and Apple gaming for
I'll think about the startup thing. I'll get back to you.
okay. Well, take it easy, man. We'll catch you in a few weeks.
Yes. Bye.
Later. That was the wrong transition. Here we go. That's the one. Okay, so I'm wrapping with this topic. It's Carson, yes. Corbin will not be available for the next 2 weeks. He's got plans. I'm gonna see if maybe I meant to ask him about this at one point, but I'll do it later. He might be. I don't know exactly what the days are, so if it works out, I might see about moving a RambleCast to a different day for one of the weeks, just to see if we can fit him in. If not, it happens. But yeah. So anyway, for the remaining, we'll say 15 minutes, we're gonna try to hit this Microsoft building a Xbox mobile gaming store to take on Apple and Google. So I'm already skeptical on this. Diablo, xCloud needs to win you over better because Stadia spoiled you. No, that is actually a fair point. Though I've heard xCloud has improved enough that it's at least reasonably like a good enough experience. It's not necessarily as good, but hey, not as good is still not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, so like I said, I did not actually read this. I kind of tried skimming it earlier and I failed because shockingly, I just don't picture Microsoft doing this well. It's not that Microsoft isn't a games company. They obviously do quite a lot with Xbox, but part of me looks at this and I just think, how are you really going to take on the companies that own the platforms when it comes to games? Are they... Because you're not... Okay, you have, as I see it, kind of two choices. You can either make your own hardware. Basically, they can create a mobile platform of their own that would be basically compete with like the Game Boys of yore, the Wii of now, or sorry, not the the Wii of now, or sorry, the Switch, not the Wii, the Switch. Thank you for Nintendo for the confusing names. Or you can go the other way and try to do a software platform, entirely software, that will run on anything. Or, of course, you can go with the cloud gaming. But they already tried that, and it's not doing super well. So, let's see. How does the company describe the opportunity? Okay. Skimming. I'm seeing a lot of numbers. I'm not seeing a lot of here's what you do. So, okay, they are talking about their own app stores on its Xbox mobile platform. Wait, so is this for is this cloud gaming, like streaming gaming? I'm not sure I understand the point of this. But they would run their own app store, that much is a given. As I look at this, I'm just not seeing anything. It talks about the games they're picking up from Activision. Did anybody else read this and get anything specific out of this that I missed? Yeah, they're never going to be allowed on iOS, not with their own store. So obviously they can try to do cloud gaming. That's one way that they can kind of sidestep the store, but now is it confusing to read? Okay, then this, I'm gonna go with this is a pie in the sky. They probably are saying that they want to be part of mobile gaming. They don't have a plan. They don't know how they're gonna do it. They just know that they want to do it, which is not unreasonable. I don't have anything against the let's find a way to make it happen. I do think it's probably a mistake to be pre-announcing it this early, because now people are just going to sit there and kind of casually say, hey, whatever happened to that thing for the next 3 years while Microsoft doesn't do anything visibly. They could be working for plenty of years on trying to make this happen, but until they actually launch something to the public, or unless they talk to the public the whole time, nobody's going to know about it. Remember Netflix games too? Netflix at least is launching games. I mean, they're doing it slowly and they're not necessarily really making an impact, but Netflix is at least launching games. And I'm sure Microsoft will too, but in what capacity? How are they doing it? How are they taking on Apple and Google? If they are starting a store, obviously, you know, no chance it'll ever be on iOS. Well, I say that, but to be fair, I could kind of picture Apple cutting a deal with Microsoft, being like, hey, we know you, we'll let you do the store thing too, just give us a cut. I could see Apple actually cutting that deal with Microsoft. Those two have been buddy-buddy for long enough. It's not implausible. That being said, so my question, and I even made this joke before, I could kind of see Microsoft doing this, trying it, and it will do mediocre numbers. Then I could see Apple being like, oh, you're going to step on our toes? Cool, we'll just launch a console. And in response, I'm picturing Microsoft saying, sorry, no, won't, we will not entertain this thought again. Because Microsoft can try to break into mobile gaming and they're not going to do anything. Apple can try to break into console gaming and it's going to be scary as hell for Nintendo, Microsoft, and maybe Sony. They're also doing a dedicated small box. I don't know. Was that part of this? But yeah. I just have my doubts that this is the sort of thing that's gonna pan out for them. It could. Maybe I'm being overly cynical, but a part of me just looks at this and thinks if they don't, first off, they seem to maybe not have a big plan. Second, how are they really going to break into something that is now at this stage kind of a market dominated by 2 to 3 other entities? What's that? Weird. Thought I just heard a phone buzz. Anyway, I have my doubts. I have a lot of doubts. But evidently they do too if they're not talking in more specific terms. My hunch, they're probably going to try to do the same thing that others have tried. Just put out their own store for Android, hope it succeeds, and then maybe try to talk Apple into some kind of a deal, which may or may not work. I'm guessing it won't work. The other possibility is they're going to build their own hardware platform, but yikes. I mean, they could. I mean, this, if any company can make it happen, it's Microsoft. They're probably in a better position than even Sony. But I don't see it working. I don't know. Maybe it actually would work. That's hard to say. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they'll come out with a new Steam Deck. It'll just be their own variant of this, and it supports only stuff out of the Microsoft gaming store, which, if it's anything like their Windows Marketplace, that's not good. And it actually, if they ran it anything like that, I don't think they would. That wouldn't make any sense. But if they were to, that just sounds like they'd be begging for trouble. Okay, I don't know at this point. I think I'd just be making stuff up if I talk any more about it. So I think that is a good time to wrap it. So let's see, this weekend, I would expect to be fairly good. Oh, wow. It's actually legitimately cold on Saturday. Well, hey, so game stream seems pretty likely, especially since weather is going to suck on Saturday in a really bad way, and Sunday doesn't look so great either. So yeah, game stream should be likely. So feel free, come by, join the games if you like. Should be some Fall Guys action. Let's see. Other than that, next week probably should be same time, same place for some RambleCasty. I don't think there's much else to say. Carson, Sunday's a maybe for you? Okay. Oh, and no go on a Saturday. Okay. Let's see. If no one else is showing up for Saturday, I might see if I can switch something else in just for the sake of having something other than Fall Guys, I guess. We'll see what happens. I'll maybe put out a call early on Saturday and or Sunday to see if anyone wants to join. I am definitely hearing buzzing. That is creeping me out. Okay, my hand is sitting on multiple phones. That's not where it's coming from. Oh! Smartwatch. That's what it is. Either it just started getting notifications, or maybe it's connecting and disconnecting from the power. I think it was just getting a bunch of notifications. Okay. That, good. I'm not going crazy. Yes, the W7 is actually alive. I figured out it was doing a weird thing where it was kicking into its sleep mode, where the hands are still active. They still operate, but the whole rest of the watch wouldn't come out of that. So, yeah, very, very weird behavior, but... Yep, okay, the problem is it's connecting and disconnecting for the power. So, I'll just pull it off power and... I don't know. I don't want to let it die again, but... I'm not sure that it's good to even keep it on power. We'll see. I'll figure something out. In the meantime, you can just sit there. So yeah, anyway, I think that's a good sign to go. I'm going to actually finish getting my Pixel 7 set up and commence with checking that out and playing with it. But with that, thanks everyone for coming by, hanging out, being part of the conversation, joining me, and chatting with Corbin and myself. If you don't already, feel free, or if you feel so inclined, feel free to support the channel with links to Streamlabs, Cash App, and Patreon down below. Again, feel free to come by this weekend and join for some gaming, possibly photos. I don't know. There's possibilities. And with that, I hope you have an excellent rest of your week. I will see you all in the next one. Good night, everybody.